everybody. Call meeting to order, please. And Robert, if you would lead us in the flag salute.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If the Zoom folks are muted, that would be nice. And Joe, if you'd give us a report out of closed session.
Certainly. In case number 2201, Paula motioned, Diane seconded, and it was approved by 5-0. The stipulated agreement was approved by 5-0. In case 2202, Jeannie motioned, Robert seconded, and was the stipulated agreement was approved by a vote of 5-0. In case 2203, Diane motioned, Paula seconded, and it was approved by a vote of 5-0. In case 2204, Jeannie motioned, Diane seconded, and was approved by a vote of 5-0. And in case 2205, Robert motioned, Paula seconded, and was approved by a vote of 5-0. No action was taken in item F.
Okay, thank you. And we have informational. We have Willits Charter School's annual report. Do we have anybody from Willits Charter School here tonight?
I think she's not here right now.
Okay, we'll continue on. We also have the Willits Elementary Charter School.
Yes, hi. Shall I stand over there? Is that-
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
There's a microphone for you there.
Oh, thank you.
Really?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlene Bretter. I'm the director of the Willits Elementary Charter School, and we have submitted our annual report from last year, which looks very different than normal because as we all were in the COVID situation. And so the report is reflective of our actions last year, which again are vastly different from this year as are the districts. So I thank you all so much for your support and our continuing good, positive relationship with each other. Does anyone have any questions about my report?
No, at this point.
Okay. If anyone does in the future or anything, you're more than welcome to come visit our school or to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a representative from Levita? Levita?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ann Kelly. This is the director of Levita. This has been our 20th birthday this year. We were really happy last year to get through the rough COVID year. We felt like we were very adaptive and experimentative and accomplished some really great fun outcomes. And this year, a district kind of around the county had meetings, and unfortunately people superintendents are complaining about a lot of behaviors, children's behaviors being off the hook, being very challenging. And at Levita, it's just the opposite. So because of that homeschooling, it's just a different type of environment. And so we've got kids that are just happy to be there. They're very cooperative. It's we don't have the challenges on that level that the other schools have. We've been really lucky to have Joe come and visit us at our board meetings and getting that, it's really nice to have him at discussing, the new policies that may be coming up through the state and things like that. What are they going to, to get that advice and a bigger picture. And so we're really, feel really lucky to have that support. So, and also, are any questions about our report? Nothing? Okay.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
we're at WTA comments. Tessa?
Yes, sir. Give me one moment here. Yes, sir. Give me one moment here. The battery. Oh, great. Battery.
It's a remix.
I'll just shut that off. I apologize. Okay. All right. Can you hear me okay?
We've got you just fine, Tessa.
Yes? Very good. Thank you. Good evening, school board members. It's wonderful to see you. There are many wonderful things happening on our campuses right now. Some of them were highlighted in a newsletter that Mr. Aldridge just sent out. We all love seeing what our children are doing and how they're growing academically and socially, so a big thank you to everyone involved in the production of that publication. We're looking forward to the next one. From the recent WTA e-board meeting, I heard from our site representatives about even more things that are happening on our campuses. At Sherwood, siding was put on their existing outdoor shelter and another structure was added. The custodial services have increased to both morning and afternoon, and they now have counseling services available to students twice a week. Everyone is very grateful. They'll be going on field trips to the ice rink in Ukiah, as well as the skunk train, photo ops for the next newsletter. At Brookside, students are now eating inside the cafeteria, and they have PE 2 times a week. The library has been used for classes in quarantine, and we would like reassurance that the library will be cleaned thoroughly after, not only because our librarian is especially vulnerable, but also because it's a shared space for the rest of our students. The transition of the staff room from the main office to a portable in the back at Brookside has been difficult, but teachers were amazing and pulled off an entire week of school without a copy machine. Unless they went to the district office, which many did. Thank you for that option while we wait for Xerox to catch up on their orders. Blosser has chosen to give students the option of indoor or outdoor eating, and so far this has been a successful option. While I've observed no fewer than 10 and no more than 20 students eating indoors each day, including cool or sprinkly days, everyone appreciates having a choice. Trimester 1 report cards have been finalized and will be available for viewing online this Friday, December 10th. Bethel Grove has been participating in adult social emotional learning trainings, and the feedback has been really positive. We applaud these efforts to help our educators and ultimately our students during these extremely challenging times. Students at Bethel Grove are also taking behavior-based lessons regarding cyberbullying, which will help them navigate the challenges of increased computer time these days. There is a field trip scheduled for the ice rink in Ukiah that was created entirely to, quote, turn the negatives into positives, end quote, by allowing all students with positive behavior standing to participate. At the high school, there have been all kinds of events, athletic and COVID related, that have hallmarked the fall sports program. I believe you are already aware, or soon will be, most of them. An additional day custodian is on site, which is helping immensely to keep facilities clean and in working order. Thank you, thank you. An English class position has been eliminated this year, and there are concerns about the additional impact to existing classes and the students' ability to meet graduation requirements. One last concern regards the use of personal appliances in the classroom. Teachers were asked to remove coffee pots, microwaves, and small refrigerators, but we have yet to see anything in writing that supports that action. Is it an insurance issue? Is it an ed code policy? If so, we would like to see the document that says no personal appliances are allowed. However, if it's because of the condition of electrical systems at all our sites, then we should be concerned. We were told that we can't even plug in a string of Christmas lights, so we would really like to understand the reasoning and the purpose behind asking all teachers to remove personal appliances from the room. We are waiting for documentation and clarification from Mr. Aldrich. I'd like to speak now to the people who expressed concerns at the last board meeting about students eating outside and wearing masks while walking on campus or playing on the playground. As previously mentioned, accommodations have been made for students to eat inside, so that issue is moot. Regarding the issue of wearing masks outdoors right now, erroneous information regarding surrounding district policies has been dispersed, and an inaccurate picture of how COVID policies were developed has been allowed to spread. After the last board meeting, pictures were taken and posted on social media in a manner intended to malign Willits teachers to advance the cause of this group. I cannot emphasize enough how cruel and mean this was, and many people were hurt. It is counterproductive to attack the people who care more than anybody for your children, and I hope in the future you will seek to work with the association that is working harder than ever before to keep our schools safe and open, rather than against us. Teaching has never been harder than it is now, so we thank you for your kindness and grace as we navigate the ever-changing conditions of a COVID world. That concludes my WTA comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa.
So Tessa, I had a question. Was the thing about the personal appliances, the refrigerators and the coffee pots and things like that, did that have to do with COVID? Was another thing that had to be cleaned, or
It's a power issue.
was that part of the COVID policy?
Not to my knowledge or understanding. We have no justification or explanation for that. And as many of us are not using the shared space of a staff room, it becomes particularly important to be able to refrigerate our food, heat it up, things like that, and not share that space. So we are concerned and we would like to know.
I'll provide a response.
Okay, we are at CSEA. Mr. Green, are you available?
Yes, I'm here. I'll start with thanking all the classified staff that we've been shorthanded a lot, and a lot of the folks are helping out in other departments, doing tasks other than their assigned tasks at hiring. It's been going pretty good. Everybody helping each other out. That's good to see. We have picked up a couple of positions, which are filling in some of the holes that we had, and those folks are working out pretty good. That's always good to hear. We've been taking care of a lot of building issues. I could reply to Tessa's concerns about some of the electrical things. I am actually involved in that. These are a result of insurance, fire codes, and fit reports that we have to mandatory have. We get what we call hits, is bad marks against us because of certain things involved in classrooms. I personally like the way some of the classrooms are decorated, but when the fire code comes by, too much paper becomes a problem for all the specific fire reasons, and I'm sure Alex would understand that and be able to elaborate at some point about that. But we just don't do things because we don't like people. We're doing stuff because we're pressured by other organizations to make some certain decisions. I like to talk about one of the hot topics right now. Is one of the current hot topics revolves around COVID MOUs. The CSEA has concerns that these MOUs violate the exclusive right that the CSEA has to bargain for wages, hours, and working conditions of the classified unit at WUSD. The CSEA mutually agreed with the WUSD to follow the guidelines of the state and local health departments regarding COVID-19. WUSD's current COVID plan has not been updated to reflect the latest guidelines from the state and local health departments. During the November school board meeting, Speaker Nunez stated these guidelines are based on agreements between WUSD and local bargaining units, specifically an MOU between the WTA and the WUSD, or WUSD, dated 8/31/21. The superintendent followed up with comments about the new MOU reached with the WTA to lift outdoor masking in February of 22. The WA felt this was a sufficient incubation period following the holidays. At this point, it became clear that the WUSD COVID plan was not updated to follow state and local health guidelines because of MOUs with the WTA. These revelations bring up many issues. The WUSD has not honored agreements with the CSEA to follow the guidelines set forth by the state and local health departments regarding COVID-19. The WUSD has forced the CSEA classified staff to abide by the terms and conditions of MOUs between the WTA and the district. The WTA has no rights to bargain for or dictate the wages, hours, and working conditions of the CSEA classified staff at WUSD. MOUs between the WTA and the WUSD are agreements between the WTA and the WUSD, not agreements between the CSEA and the WUSD or any other unit within the district. The WTA is not a state or local health organization and has no right to impose restrictions upon others, citing that they think or feel that a certain amount of time is a sufficient incubation period. The CSEA requests the following: that the WUSD honor our mutual agreement and update the COVID plan to follow the state and local health guidelines to reflect that the CSEA or classified personnel be released from outdoor masking. If the WTA insists on outdoor masks, then they have every right to bargain for the WTA certified personnel to continue to wear masks outdoors. And this also goes to an MOU that's on for later tonight about releasing the WTA stating releasing the masking in February 1 of 2022. I point out again that this is a memorandum of understanding between the WTA and the district. It is not between the CSEA and the district. So there's where the issues with the CSEA stand. The CSEA was not consulted by the WTA or asked to take part in any of this, and we have not signed off on any of this. So there's many issues going on right now with a lot of people. I'm focused on just the language of agreements that happen within the district, and that's the purpose of this little part. We appreciate everybody considering this, and we'll see how all the cards lay in the future. Also like to thank everybody for working hard. The weather's going to change. It's going to be cold, and be safe. We may have some interruptions to the bus service. They're asking for snow. So we'll just keep going along, and everybody keep staying safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan. We'll move on to board comments, and we'll start with Paul.
I have been kind of in the house most of the last few weeks, but I'm real interested in checking on the various school sites and some of the things that are said to be completed, some of the maintenance issues. And then I also am just interested in seeing how the buildings are being set up and taken care of, especially out in the outlying areas. I'm also concerned about the janitorial time still. We have people who apply for work and then they get a job and then they don't work here after the second day. So that's an issue for me. I have a little bit of an issue with what CSBA said as a part of their report. Last month when we were here discussing issues of COVID, I think it's just either I don't speak clearly enough or it gets misunderstood, but our district WTA does not make up policies for the health department or CDC or anyone else. They follow the rules, as does our district and as does CSEA, I'm certain, that the state mandates and sets up. Things have changed, you know, and you will see that later in our agenda. There is an MOU that comes from Willits Teachers Association to the district, agreeing that the CDC and the state, this is from the county and the state, have both decided that masking outside doesn't seem to have the need that it did earlier. And they've gone, WTA, in their negotiations from going until June, until going until February. This has to do with safety precautions for everyone. It also has to do with giving people enough time to make sure they're vaccinated, and that after, if that's what they choose to do, of course, and that after the well, we don't do that, the winter holidays, that people would have time to kind of heal themselves, so to speak, before they go on out, and not before they go on out after February and have a little more freedom. We currently have cases in all our school sites of students with COVID. It's a lot to worry about when you feel the responsibility for taking care of the students in their best health interest. So however it ends up, I think that probably you'll become a little more aware of how the policy works out, it's not a policy, how the protocols work out for deciding what does or doesn't happen and what does or doesn't go on in negotiations. Also, we've sort of missed CSEA coming to negotiations to discuss those things that were supposed to be very important. And they too have an MOU, but it's especially limited. And so if you stick around, you'll hear about all of that as well. So I hope that's clear, probably isn't, but that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Paula.
Yeah.
Robert?
You know, I wasn't here at the last board meeting. I had a family emergency and my dad was having surgery. But I do want to thank our unions for throwing that shindig over at the golf course. I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was something that was unifying. I also want to extend my appreciation out to all of the staff that is out there doing special things for this holiday season. It's a lot of work, a lot of extra work, but the parents appreciate it, the kids appreciate it, and it makes these holiday seasons all that more special. But I know it's extra work, and a lot of it comes from their own pockets, but thank you so much for giving the children those experiences. That's it.
Diane?
Well, Thanksgiving, we had a good time on that one. Yes, I agree with Robert.
Talk
Teachers-
loudly. Talk loud.
Oh, thank you. With the parents that came and talked, it was really nice to see that the cafeterias are open to students now. And then at Blosser, that they have a choice to eat indoors or outdoors. And I like that, because that was the one that bothered me the most. The COVID, we're back on this roller coaster again, but it looks like this new one is mild. But it would be nice to see what it does. So that was about it right there. And
Can't hear you.
Could you speak up, please?
Can't hear you.
Oh.
Are you- Okay, Jeannie, speak loud.
Yeah, articulating behind masks,
Take it off.
it requires some extra effort.
6 feet
So
apart.
I wanted to say that I've been keeping my physical distance from the schools because I feel that if you're not tested, that participation on campus is just adds to the burdens of the staff that teaches at the campus. And but I know that how hard everybody is working, and it's not just how hard everybody's working at their usual jobs, but working at all the extra jobs that go with all this COVID stuff, and the testing of students, the communication to parents, and everybody's doing jobs way beyond what they usually do, and the administration, like the two vice principals at Miriam at the high school and Mackenzie at the middle school, they're not only doing those jobs, but they're also principals at small schools, Sanhedrin and Sherwood, and taking responsibility for overseeing some of the independent study, I believe, and that all this, it's just spreading everybody really thin, and I'm really aware of that. I'm hoping that this year will be the last of that kind of thing, that maybe we can get back to a normal expectation for how people fulfill their jobs. I wanted to say about the COVID safety plan is that this sentence jumped out at me when I printed it out and read it. I like to print things out because I read them a lot better if they're in print. So anyway, but it's right in the first paragraph, and it says the foundational principle of this plan, which is the COVID plan, is that all students must have access to safe and full in-person instruction and to as much instructional time as possible. And I wanted to say that, read that, because I think it shows a motive behind our COVID safety plan, where our heart was when we created this COVID safety plan, is we wanted students to be successful and back in school. And I want to say that I think we've accomplished that. With very few exceptions. I know that I believe there was a class at Brookside that had to close down for a week. But other than that, we have kept the schools open and running, and it's been a real success. And that hasn't. I was reading today that something like 1,000 school districts around the country have had to close for periods of time during the school year. And so we haven't had to do that. We have stayed open and we've stayed functioning. And I think that that's, we can commend parents for that, we can commend staff members for that, we can commend the students for that. We've all been working together to make this happen. And I also want to say that we're doing this electronic thing with the agenda and with our packet now called Gamut. And Rochelle will be pleased to know that I played around with the search part of it, where I put in a phrase to see what kind of, how to search and to find what I could find. So I put in parents, because I was interested in what our board policies were about parents. And this jumped out at me, and I just wanted to read this since there's a lot of parents here tonight. This is number 7 from our philosophy. Parents, guardians have a right and an obligation to be engaged in their child's education and to be involved in the intellectual, physical, emotional, and social development and well-being of their child. So I just want to say that I really appreciate parents paying attention and being involved and being a part of how we run this district. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Jeannie. We've got a couple things to say, one of which is I wanted to say thank you to Maria Munguia at the Bechtel Grove School for the report that she sent out to the board talking about the progress that students at her site have made. It's impressive, and I wanted to say thank you very, very much to Maria for the report, and even more so, thank you very, very much to all the teachers and staff at Bechtel Grove for making those changes that are having an impact on academic progress of those students. And hopefully the rest of our sites are having similar progress. Beyond that, I think we're at superintendent comments. Thank you.
Okay. From an instructional standpoint, our schools continue to focus their collaboration efforts on responding to student needs in the areas of reading and math. Each site has a unique approach to scheduling. We're using the data from our testing to identify students in need. And each approach is allowing the sites to properly schedule students to focus in on the needs. The groups are as dynamic as necessary to move the students forward, so we can move them more frequently than at the trimester in some schools because that's efficient, especially in the lower grades as well. Today I had the pleasure of judging the Ffa Speech Competition. I was judging the extemporaneous section of things, and we had some of our students participating. We had students from around the county and also from Lake County. They did a really quite amazing job, and it was lovely to see and be a part of that program there. We are anticipating tomorrow the delivery of some at-home COVID tests to provide the families who would like them and staff for the winter break that we have coming up. We have ordered enough to cover all students and staff if they so wish. More information will be released once we receive them. We haven't gotten a lot of information about how they're packaged and other pieces there. I also had a meeting with Public Health this morning. They report that there will be some antiviral drugs coming from the state soon that will be available within Mendocino County at 3 different pharmacies. And Willits will actually have one of those pharmacies, but it will still require a doctor's prescription to be able to get them. But if you do test positive, there is an opportunity to have a treatment that's at-home kind of thing that should lessen that as well. So that's exciting to hear that we're making some progress in those realms as well. And finally, each site, we've made some progress with concerns that were shared last time. As far as eating inside, as was shared earlier, we do have that opportunity at Brookside. They're eating in the cafeteria each day. Blosser, they have that opportunity if they would like. Students are also sitting on chairs outside if they would like. We had some concerns about the carpet squares. I spoke with the principal, and those have been removed because they weren't able to be cleaned properly. So we're just making sure kids can take their chairs outside and sit if that's what they want to. I can tell you when I've been on the Blosser campus, as I'm just there, as my office is there, the kids are pretty happy to be outside for the most part. They're laughing, they're having a good time. So I appreciate getting to interact with them in those situations as well. Students at Bechtel can use the cafeteria or walk around the campus supervised during lunch. And Willits High students, they often leave the campus for lunch, but they have covered tables if they would like here. It hasn't been much of an issue for them. At Sherwood, as you heard, we've had some permanent siding added to help cover the lunch area. We've added another cover up there as well. I'm also pleased to report that we've got an estimated delivery of next week for some heaters that we're going to install in that area, so that we should have a warm, safe place for the kiddos to enjoy their lunch. That's all I have to report today.
Joe, excuse me.
Thank you, Joe.
We are at public comments. Pardon me. Yeah.
I thought that you were on the agenda.
You're down here.
Public comments.
All right. So I guess we're comments.
Anything not on the agenda?
Are we on number 12?
Stand by.
We're
Yes,
at
we're
12A.
Yes.
Action discussion.
Okay, who's first?
You want me to read what it says, the summary?
Who's first? Are we the action discussion, number 12? So that's me.
No, we're,
Yeah, this is public comment. The person wishing to be heard by the board should first be recognized president.
Wait, are you on public comment or are you on?
We've got someone on the agenda, is it her?
We're not at that item yet.
We're not at that specific item.
Yeah, you're done.
Okay, sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
So basically, this is for anything that's not on the agenda, public comments for anything that's not on the agenda.
So they can't talk back to you, but you can say anything you want right now to the.
Is there anybody in Zoom world that wants to address the board on something that's not on the
Well, I have
agenda?
a comment here from the peanut gallery. I prepared some research for you guys. I passed that down. My name's Colby Friend. I have 3 children in the Willits Unified School District, all in different schools, Brookside, Gloucester, and BGMS. And basically, I'm here, I just want to give you some research and get you started and ask you to do research on this masking, because I've been doing a lot of research on it, and you'll see some of it, and this gets you started. The ECDC, which is the European CDC, they have a recommendation, it's on the front, and they say the role of face masks in the control and prevention of COVID-19 remains an issue of debate. Prior to COVID-19, most studies assessing the effectiveness of face masks as a protective measure in the community came from studies on influenza, which provided little evidence to support their use. So, I wanted to point out that, the cases just keep going up all the time. We have 100,000 or so new cases in the U.S. every day. We have 5,000 new cases in California every day. I just heard you say that we have cases in every school in the district. That, to me, would indicate that masks are not working. They are not preventing COVID spread. So, then of course, people who support masks are going to counter and say, well, if we didn't wear masks, it would be even worse. We'd have more COVID spread. So we can't really prove that, because we can't live in 2 realities, right? So we can't both not wear masks and wear masks and compare the difference. So we have to go and look and see who else is not wearing masks. Now, I just got back from a wedding in Florida, October 16th. And I'll tell you what, Florida, nobody's wearing masks. Nobody's wearing them. Old people, young people, you don't see it at all. You don't go in the grocery store with a mask. You don't go out to the bars with a mask. Everybody's doing everything that they want to do, completely normal in Florida. In fact, they're experiencing unprecedented boom in their economy because so many people are coming down there. So if you look at this, compare California to Florida, and I provided that for you, it's on the next page, and I just did it over this last week. In California, on November 30th, 117 new deaths. Florida, 1. On December 1st, California, 104 new deaths. Florida, 0. December 2nd, California, 115 new deaths. Florida, 1. On December 6th, and I'm not cherry picking here, I jumped over the weekend because they don't actually do a lot of reporting on the weekend. But you have California. Oh, it was a good day in California. Only 34 new deaths. Florida, 0. California on December 7th, that's yesterday, 76 new deaths. Florida, 0. So I'm wondering, people can keep talking. I heard last week a teacher say, we got to follow the science. The science is wear the mask inside. What is the science? This is the science. Why are we not looking at these very poignant stats? What is the science? Is this the science? Is this the science? He says he's the science, but we just listen to him and say this is science? Because like him or not like him, and I don't like him because I love animals. I can't like this person, but he has presided over the worst pandemic response of any country in the world. Okay? We've been the worst. So how long do we follow this guy? And then, if you want another stat, in Sweden, they don't wear masks, ever. They've never done it, okay? So, again, I studied over the last week. USA, 505 new deaths on November 30th. Sweden, 0.
You're at 3 minutes. Can you wrap it up, please?
Okay, but all right, so I'm just going to skip to December 7th. You had the USA, 1,722 new deaths. Sweden had 1. So I just ask you to look at this. Well, we can't just keep following this. And I just ask you to research it because let's do the right thing by our kids. And you guys are our liaisons. And I disagree with Tessa. You know who cares more about our kids than you guys? Us. Okay? We care the most. And we want what's best for them. And these are unhealthy to not have assistants in the classroom, to have to learn by media. I mean, I'm trying to keep my kids off media, not force them to be on media. All these types of COVID rules are unhealthy. You know, to quote my parents, if they, you know, I know that you guys are beholden to the health, the state, the federal.
I'm going to have to cut you off. We understand. We recognize what you're doing. We have your data. I'll be happy to. I will certainly read it.
Okay. All right. All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
I'm going to
interesting.
break you up for just a second. This is for public comment for items that are not on the agenda, please. The mask issue is on the agenda. So if you have something different, please proceed.
Did you say it's not on the agenda?
The mask issue is on the agenda.
It is.
Is masking outdoors on the agenda or masking in general on the agenda?
The COVID safety plan covers masking indoors and outdoors, and it is on the agenda.
It's
Happy-
item E on the agenda, consideration of update for COVID safety plan.
We're happy to have you speak on these issues at the appropriate time. Just give us a few minutes, please. If you've got a mask issue,
Am I ready, or can I go, or what?
is this about masks?
Yeah, it's about everything, okay? Can you just let me talk here? I mean, really.
You got 3 minutes.
I'm a parent.
You have 3 minutes.
Just give it a rest. You guys are the bullies. You talk about
We're just trying to be
schools are
organized.
anti-bullies. You guys are the bullies. You bully our children. You make them wear masks, this humiliation ritual, standing in circles 6 feet apart. That's what the occult does. Later, you'll want to follow the jab, the mRNA jab, which has got a patent on it. Anyone who's taken this jab has got a patent on them. This is mRNA technology. It's got a patent. If you took the jab, you have a patent on you. You no longer are in the image of God. God created us in His image. We're not to deviate. Scientists shouldn't tamper with our DNA. That's what our Governor Newsom wants to force COVID patients into the old age homes. This is the guy that wants to jab all of our kids. Why did you guys do this? Why do you bully our kids? Here's why. Not follow the science, it's follow the money. The federal funding that you guys got, the Coronavirus Response Act, the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act, totaled for our county $63,191,717. Willits Unified alone was paid $7,272,309.81 per student. That's $4,539.34. That's why you're bullying our kids. This is wrong. This is wrong. I brought my Bible in today, and let's hear what it says about this. And He causeth all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And He provides that no one should be able to buy or sell except he who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. That's what this is. Artificial intelligence is the mark of the beast. You're not going to force this on our children. If you did it because you thought you were helping, I'm sorry. You have a patent on you now. You're no longer human. You are transhuman. A transhuman. That's the agenda here. That's the end game. Bye-bye human race, hello transhumanism. You're not going to do it to our kids. Do you understand me? You're not going to do it to the children. Pagan societies sacrifice children for their own selves. Christian societies sacrifice the parents sacrifice their time, their energy, all that for their children. It's the opposite. This standing in circles, 6 feet apart, the humiliation ritual, that's the beginning of the ritual. The child sacrifice is the
3
jab.
minutes, please wrap it up.
The child sacrifice is the jab. We are not a pagan society. We're one nation under God.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments for items not on the agenda? Anybody in the Zoom world? We're closing public comments. We'll go on to the consent agenda.
I have a question, actually, just because I didn't really quite understand.
Go ahead, Tessa.
So, my name is, I'm just wondering, so because it's on the agenda, now all the people that are sitting here in the audience and people are sitting here on Zoom who have something to say will not be able to voice their opinion for this meeting today? I don't understand why that's, there's people here that are sitting here that have things to say.
We
And
need
it
more
needs to
than
be
20
said.
minutes to do it. More than 3 minutes per person, that's why.
Excuse
You're
me?
afraid to talk to us.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, that is a good way
I'm
to
just-
fight us, just put us on the agenda. Doesn't seem
But there are people here that have things to say, so when do their voices get heard?
It's up to the board. You guys want to see them now, or do you guys want to hear them on the agenda?
Well, at the agenda items, people are allowed to speak, isn't that correct?
Not always, but yes, we can allow it.
Oh, okay, because I thought that's,
My intent was to allow it.
well, that's what I thought, and I thought that's what you said, that if it was on the agenda, so I think there was a confusion about you can or can't speak. It was already decided that you would get to speak, you just don't do it twice, so to speak.
I'm trying to deal with all the other stuff
Right,
first.
Okay.
but it's on the agenda, you do get to speak.
Okay.
So is that D, David?
It's,
It's E.
Is it E or D?
there's D,
No, it's,
there's D and E, both of those.
D is the David?
D
Yeah,
and E
E
are
is in
discussion. So
Yeah.
so let's move on. Let's deal with the consent agenda.
Okay, so we're at the consent agenda?
Yes, and you had some
I
questions?
did, I wanted to pull off for discussion the, no, where was?
Are you talking about
Yes,
Second reads.
CSEA's MOU. Oh, it's not, yeah,
You're talking about the wrong one, right?
yes, I see, well, I was.
These are MOUs that have to do with,
Yeah, that's the. Oh, it's not.
with job descriptions followed.
It's B6.
These are the ones that have to do with job descriptions?
Yeah, that's one of them I want to talk about.
Okay, you want to do those separately?
Yes, please.
So which items do you want to do separately?
Well, I can't make it come back. Can I see it one more time?
You talk about item 6 in the consent agenda?
B6, and then there was I had a question about B7, and a question about B3. So it's 3, 6, and 7. 6 will take a little while, but 3 and 7.
So let's go ahead and deal with item 3 first.
Oh, okay, my question for 3 has to do with, I understood that one of those new hires is not a new hire anymore.
We would still have to have them approved even if they came on board and then left.
Oh, that's what happens, and so then like next month, it'll say this is a resigned person or whatever? Oh, okay, I misunderstood. And then we could go to 7 if you want.
7, substitute teacher pay.
Uh-huh.
Go
It
ahead.
says in there, there's a $5 difference between 0 to 10 days and 10 to 20 days. And I was just wondering how that, I mean, I understand really well the difference between 20 days, 1 to 20 and 20 to however. But I don't understand the $5 from,
That was keeping in past practice with how we run the sub-pay of the district. It's currently 130, 135, and then the 227. So it was just keeping in that same practice so that our season subs can expect kind of the same differential.
it doesn't make it a responsibility for them from day 10 to day 20 to make plans then, right?
No,
That's
it's more
just
about the
a-
continuity of the same person in the position.
Oh, okay, that's good. That was my concern.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
And anything
Yeah.
else on the consent agenda?
That's 6.
6, okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, really have to bring it up. It had writing on it, and I wanted to make writing. It was a written thing, and I wanted to make sure it was brought up so I could.
This is the MOU between CSEA and the district establishing maintenance 1 and maintenance 2 positions.
Right. I'm just looking for my email.
And where they fit on the pay scale.
On the pay scale? Okay, I've already expressed most of my concerns about this to our superintendent, in that I have issues with the names of people being put on an MOU. I think that that's a real problem. MOUs are set up, they're called Memorandums of Understanding, and they are set up so that they can apply to more than one person, and so that it is in general that benefits the whole group, or at least members with an S of the group. Now, I've been explained to that there is only one person to do that, and consequently, that's the issue right now. But it needs to be remembered, and we can all go back to the table or wherever and talk to legal. But the legal that the Teachers Association used, and they're the same group of attorneys, all say that, 1, you don't do it for just one person and you don't mention them. 2, when you do it for non-precedent setting, then what that, which is the number 5 on there, what that does is say that only this person will be receiving this benefit. And in our district, we have a relatively recent history and then about a 3-year history of how when people changed from whatever to a different title, they could go to the same, they were at the same range, but their longevity was never counted. And in this case, this one specific situation will count longevity, which makes it really difficult because when you look at it and you say, gosh, we've had 2 maintenance positions before, a maintenance 1 and a maintenance 2. They were they were abolished, so to speak. It was taken out. And then it comes back now, benefits one person only. And it's just the look of it saying, well, gosh, how did that manage to benefit one person only? What did their executive board say? And there doesn't seem to be any response. It looks really bad.
So a question for Joe. Is there salary implications in this?
$3 difference.
Currently, no, there's no salary implication in that particular one. That was the purpose of the MOU, was to establish, because we were basically taking one job description and breaking it into 2, that we kept this person, so basically what this says is that they stay at the rate that they are right now. So
But there would be
I can understand.
13 to 16.
I actually had that same confusion and had to clarify with Joe, but the maintenance one that's referred to in number 3, that does not change the salary range from where a position currently is. So I was thinking of it as if it was going to the higher one, and it's not.
No, I know that it goes to the lower one, but I don't see anything, I mean.
So that because there's no then change, I think then that issue.
So the
It's like
purpose.
it's maintaining continuity as
So-
opposed to making change.
Yeah, so, and the difference is this person isn't necessarily changing, it's not like going from the cafeteria to an instructional aide being a whole
Mhm.
different class. We're saying that we need to break the job into two different job
Two titles.
descriptions.
Uh-huh.
And so what do we do with the person who currently has the job description that we're breaking up, and that's what this agreement is about.
Okay, this agreement doesn't include any kind of proofs for, I mean, there, in the past, we've had tests. You took a test and you did or didn't qualify for a particular position. And there's nothing about anything like that here. I know in the job descriptions, it's kind of vague about how they plan to, how whomever is doing the evaluating or observing plans to decide if somebody changes from a 1 to a 2. But this whole thing just really, it just doesn't seem very good. It's only for one instance, one person, one issue, one time. I mean, that's sort of the way it turns into, and for me, that's independent, individual bargaining, you know? I go to you, I make a plan, I write it up, and the next guy gets to come over and go to you and make a plan and write it up.
And so the district's intent in this situation was we have a need to be able to hire more maintenance staff.
Yes.
As a result, we've had a need to break that into two different job categories because we were not getting enough interest at the level that we had it written. So we needed one that was an entry level and one that was a more advanced. And so that's where we were trying to go with this. If this MOU is not satisfactory to the board, I can always take it back to the table. We can make some changes and bring it back to you if that's what the
Okay.
board desires.
I guess the question I would throw out there is, can we achieve the same thing without specifically naming personnel?
We absolutely could.
Yeah, because it's a position 1 and 2, and then I think number 3 should be eliminated there because you don't put a person's name on an MOU.
Except that then, and I agree with you 100%. My only concern with eliminating all of 3. Well, I don't, you're right, I don't
Can't have your
understand why
cake and
it's
eat it
in
too.
there. Yeah. It's just- Okay, it just looked as if that, when we've had past issues in this district with people changing from one position to another, they almost always took a healthy cut in pay because their seniority didn't count. Now, that wasn't the case in the past, but it wasn't the case within the last 3 to 4 years. And this one seems set up to make sure that won't happen. And if there's no change, then yeah, it makes sense, I guess, to just take it all the way out. You know, I mean, I'm not interested in negotiating in public or doing anything like that. I would like it pulled, I would like it to go back to the table.
There's audience comments as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The CSCA labor rep is out in Zoom world, and she could explain why the wording on the MOU is that way. There's some laws that state that certain things have to be done if you're gonna move, and she could clarify all that. Her name's Nicole.
Is Nicole available?
Yes, I'm here.
But there's no move, right?
Can you give us a little more information on how that, what item 3 in the MOU is there?
Yeah, I'm not looking at the MOU, so can you read what line 3 says to me?
It starts out with the parties agree to the following, and then there are 5 elements. The third element is Dan Green's position will become a maintenance 1. Seniority for Dan Green will be based on his original hire date of June 30, 2014.
So why that is in there is the title of Dan, who happens to be our current maintenance person. The title of Dan's position is changing. And therefore, Dan's hire date into that position would be today. So he would lose all of his seniority in a bumping position. So all we're doing with it, Dan, isn't gaining any there's no monetary value to this. We're only protecting the person who holds that position, which we would do with any change to a name of a job description to protect his seniority. So if you had a cafeteria aide and you were gonna now call it a cafeteria assistant, we would do the same thing because the title changes their seniority date.
So
It's the only thing it's doing.
So the only question I have out there is, what if you had 40 people that were in this situation? Would we have to
You don't
name
have-
each one of them?
40 MOUs.
40 MOUs.
Yes, so you would need to, that's the only reason the name is linked. So I do have in other areas, and that could happen here too, like the para-educators. You decide you want to call them para-educator 1 and para-educator 2, and right now you just have an instructional assistant. Every person that holds that job would need to have their seniority date memorialized.
I guess
Doesn't have anything to do with pay.
that makes perfect sense to me. However, it makes sense to me also that we would say anybody currently in the position of is being reclassified as such, and their seniority will be moved with them to that new job title.
It would never pass my field office without the name attached to protect the employees. So, you know, again, there's no monetary value linked to this.
Interesting.
So I was an assistant cook, and I started out as an aide, right, or yard duty, moved up to the clerk, stayed in the cafeteria. I'll be 20 years, okay? Somebody did a contract, changed the wording in the longevity. I took a job because my manager retired. So I went from clerk to assistant cook, from assistant cook to manager. I lost my longevity because of that. I'm going to be a 20-year employee. You can hire somebody off the street for as much as I make. When I got put in the position, I got step D. You could hire somebody off the street for step C. And I had 16 years, 17, going on 17 years in that position. Somebody brand new can make as much money as me because you guys took my longevity for 3 little words: in classification. 3 words. That happened to Erica Buzzard, Heather, all your secretaries now. They all started out as assistants. You guys gave Nikki something, what, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, longevity? What was that? I read something. You know, I mean, if you're going to do it for one, please do it for all.
Well, I would always.
And I talked to Holly, I've talked to Mark, I've talked to Dan, I've talked to all kinds of people. Holly, oh yes, it needs to be fixed. Because you can hire anybody off the street. It's not fair. Not okay. And it's not okay that he gets it because he's the one that changed it. Not okay. Not okay, Dan.
So I don't have any history
Yes,
there. I wasn't part of
You're
any
the
of
one
that.
that
I'm
did
not
the
sure.
contract.
You know, I don't know what she's speaking to or what, but I would love to talk to her.
Oh,
you know,
please give me a call. But the board needs to know. This happened to Erica Buzzard. That lady's down there busting her hump. 10, 12 hours a day, comes down, does COVID. We are all asked to do more than what we should right now. Every one of us that's working.
All of us.
Janitor's out. I go in there with the principal and bust my hump. I've had 3 knee surgeries, a total knee, and I'm in there doing a job I shouldn't be doing. We're all being asked to do more than we should. And then somebody moves the position to help the school. We're a learning facility. You want people to do better. You want your kids to go to 6th grade, not stay in 5th. But what you're doing to your employees is not okay. Not okay. And I'm not the only one.
Say about this job description the other thing I would say about this job description is the district approached us. We did not approach the district.
Understand. So I've got more questions also, especially about what you're talking about. But we're not going to cure that tonight. But I'd like to follow up and get more information. Okay?
You know, and they paid me backfill. I talked to Mark, and Mark's like, oh yeah, I'd like to do something about it. I agree. But why should Ted make more money than Dan Green? And I'm like, really? Because he's been an employee for 19 years. Same thing for me. He goes, something needs to be fixed. Because it's not fair that somebody off the street can make as much as I do. I've dedicated over and over. Erica lost all her seniority sitting there being a secretary. Heather,
Guys,
there's a lot of us.
So
It
we
just
need
didn't
more,
affect
we
me.
need more information. Like I said, we're not
Yeah.
gonna fix it tonight.
I've talked to Joe,
I-
you know, and I would really hate to get a lawyer. Really hate to do that, because that gives this district a black eye. And you know what?
Both,
I probably have a good
both,
case.
both,
And I don't want to do that.
both labor groups are currently in negotiations.
Oh, I know. I tried to get in negotiations for this contract. The last one, he wrote some little letter that it was like, really? You're not going to let me on because I'm a 15-year employee, and now I took a job for a manager, and I could lose my job if something was said. So therefore, you can't be on the committee for the sunshine. Really, people? Are you kidding? So I've tried.
So let's do let's
Here's just
follow.
one other little question I have about this particular deal. If it's being called a different position, or the same position with a different title, that doesn't open it up to other people being able to apply for it? Usually when we change the names of positions,
I've got almost 20 years in this.
it does.
Almost 20. They took
So
all my
in this
jobs.
situation,
There's people
my
behind me,
opinion
Dan,
is that
making more
we
money
have
than I am, and I've got 5 years
the
more. Now,
original
he
job
wants
description was
to make
broken
more
into
money.
2 parts.
Do you think it's fair? He's the one that did the contract.
Can we keep
He's
it
the
down
one
in the
that
back,
changed
please?
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you.
So as a result,
I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit upset.
I understand.
Okay, thanks,
Believe me, I
Alex.
understand.
I am very upset.
we can't take a job away from existing personnel in that position. We have to assign them somewhere. And so this assigns to the lower of the 2 places. And then we will go through a process in to hire into the other position as we saw fit as a district.
Okay, that was my other concern. Well then, thanks. Is there a way for, my end result is that it needs modifying, and I'd like to see it pulled and have that done. I don't know in the process.
We are going to have another meeting this month, correct?
Is it Thursday? Is
Can
that
we,
what it is? Oh,
can we pull this item, and if the rest of the board is in agreement, we would pull this item, have more dialogue between all the parties concerned, and bring it back at the next meeting this month? Okay.
That's,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's
I
the board's
appreciate
direction,
it.
absolutely.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
So item 6 is been removed from the consent agenda. So
Thank you, board.
barring that, is there any other things on the consent agenda that anybody have questions? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are at the gamut discussion.
The purpose of this was just to check in with board members and members of the public to see if there's any feedback on the new format that we've been in, and if there's anything that we can do better to help make sure it's accessible. I know from our user end, it makes life easier, but I want to make sure that's the case for everybody using the product as well. So it was just an opportunity for feedback there, and if there is none, then we will continue to do what we're doing.
I like it.
There's a relatively short learning curve. It's not particularly difficult.
New system they're using on the.
I'm having no difficulties with it. Anybody else on the board?
I would like to say that I miss my binder with the tabs and where I can interact with the text, where I can circle things and scribble on things and underline things and highlight things and write notes, and I miss it very much. And I feel like I comprehend things much better in that kind of format, but I realize that this is what's happening and this is where we're going, and so I forced myself this time to not ask you to print me out a binder or print me out a packet, and I made myself use the electronic document, and I started to take notes on a pad, and then I said, no, I'm gonna use the little electronic sticky notes for my notes. So I worked hard at it, but I printed out a couple things because I really wanted to understand what they, so I used my own ink on my own printer and printed out the COVID safety plan because I really wanted to understand it. And I wanted to interact with it so I could underline things and highlight things, and I did the same thing with Vicky's multi-year projections. I thought it was really important that I understand it, and I find electronic, and I'm not computer illiterate. I'm very literate for my age on a computer, but I just find that I don't comprehend as well or interact with the text as well when it's electronically communicated, but I'm working on it hard. So just wanted to let you know.
We appreciate it.
I even used the search engine, looked up parents.
I'm happy to print out a packet for you anytime.
Teaching us old dogs new tricks.
Well, I want you to know that I did not ask for a packet. Are you impressed? No. But the thing is, I really feel like Jeannie a whole lot, except that I'm not computer illiterate. And yes, I am. I am not computer literate. There we go, excuse me. But I'm, you know, you have to set me up sometimes. Rochelle did really good little tutorials and things, her and Jennifer Naples, gosh. But I'm getting better, so if maybe by January or something, I'll have really nice things to say instead of how much I can't stand this film. Okay?
We
just need to.
And I want to add that I
about it.
understand that this procedure with the gamut and electronic transmission and all that it would make things easier for people like you. So, in your position. So I appreciate the fact that it makes things easier. And the whole world doesn't revolve around me, so.
I thought it did.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll tell my husband that.
Okay, any further discussion on gamut? Okay, moving on, we are at item D, discussion of the district's COVID safety protocols for a community members request. So after last month's meeting, there's been a number of people that have come forward and wanted to actually have this an agendized item, so it is here. I'd like to keep I'd like to keep people to 3 minutes apiece, please. And we will
I was
start.
told I didn't have a time frame.
Is that on the agenda?
I'm on the agenda.
No,
As a discussion.
Well, we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak.
You got all night.
There's only 3 of us so far. 4. It's a little confusing. I was told one thing. And,
No problem. Go.
So I only have 3 minutes? Is that?
there's a policy you can read, it's real simple.
Yeah. We will try to be flexible.
And may I clarify that I did share with her, she has asked for this item, and so as the presenter, we usually afford the presenter more time, and then it would be the public comment to ensue. Okay.
And she's on here.
Thank you.
Scott, go ahead.
I appreciate you letting me be here again. I want to thank you guys, and I will try to not take up too much of your time, and I'm going to be as respectful as I can. All students in this district deserve a warm, clean, dry place to eat. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Yes.
I hope so. Joe actually went over a lot of stuff I was about to ask you guys if you knew about. Only 2 out of the 5 sites in your district offer those accommodations for their students. Brookside is doing an amazing job. They're like almost back to some normalcy. Minus, well, yeah, they need real food. All of this, yeah, that's another issue. But it's almost normal there, minus the masks. They're eating in their cafeteria. There's no more cohorts. They're actually intermingling the kids, which is great. Bechtel, same thing. They have a choice to eat outside on tables, sitting at tables, food tables, not on the ground, or cafeteria. High school, like you said, they usually leave campus, cars, walking, but a lot of students don't leave, and they don't have a warm place to eat when it's 40 degrees outside. Today was 46 degrees outside, and these students don't have a warm place to eat. The teachers do, which is great, I'm glad, but the students also need a warm place to eat. They do have the awnings here at the high school, so if it's raining, they don't get rained on. Blosser, it's gonna take a minute, because it's a mess still. Tessa, I'd like to respectfully disagree with you. The kids should not have a choice to sit on the ground and eat their lunch. The kids should not be forced to be like my son, he spilled his milk. He has to go to a bucket with a bristle brush in it and clean the ground where he spilled his milk. Students should not be cleaning the grounds of the school. I'm not trying to I'm sorry, this is difficult. My daughter wants to eat inside. She wants to eat in the cafeteria. She says it's colder in the cafeteria than it is outside because the doors are open, they're blowing fans. I understand there's gotta be ventilation, but she said that nobody's eating in there, so she doesn't want to eat alone. She's cold. My daughter these students have to make a choice to eat outside because they're cold and lonely in the cafeteria. That is not a choice these children should be making. They should be in the cafeteria 100% of the time where the tables are clean, not on the ground where hundreds of students walk through. A parent just told me their daughter, she saw her daughter's food on the ground, peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the ground. These kids should not be eating on the ground. If Blosser was like the other sites where they had benches, I would totally agree with this. But there's no benches for these kids to sit. They're sitting on the ground. It's disgusting. It's not sanitary. It's not safe.
I have a recommendation. We now have a bunch of tables at Blosser.
Let's stick with one at a time. You'll have an opportunity.
Borrow from our
Please,
school.
please.
She just reminded me, my daughter, I was at Safeway, my daughter thinks it's okay to eat on the ground. I was in line and she had a chicken from the deli. She sat on the ground and was eating on the ground like she thought it was okay. You're teaching these kids it's okay to eat off the ground by having these rules. You know, like, this needs to change, like, today. If you have benches for every student to sit, then they should be eating outside, or have the choice to eat outside. Sherwood Elementary, I know Sherwood pretty well because my students were there for a few years. I know that they don't have a cafeteria. I appreciate what the school has done the district has done by building the shed or the carport. But when it's 40 degrees outside or it's snowing, which it does up there, and raining, or in the morning when the benches are soaking wet because of the dew. Before COVID, if it was any three of those things, they would eat in their classrooms. And they should be eating in their classrooms if it's 40 degrees, if it's raining, snowing, when the benches are wet, period. All these schools should have an indoor, safe, warm, dry, clean place to eat, period. I know all the schools are run different, but there should be some consistency when it comes to the health and safety of these kids at each site. There should be consistency with the eating arrangements at each site. We should know when we drop our kids off that they're going to be warm, clean, and dry when it comes to where they're eating. The second thing I would like to bring up is the outdoor masking. Can you guys explain to us why our staff and students are still wearing masks outside? Do you guys have any scientific data or documentation that shows the benefits of it? Like why we're still masking outside?
So the origins of the masking outside came from as we were dealing with the Delta variant when school started. And it is, at this point, a remnant of that agreement that was made at that point.
Yeah.
As at this point, we do have data from surrounding districts that suggests that it's roughly the same case rate regardless of that factor, it seems at this point.
Okay. The last meeting, I did give you guys an overwhelming amount of evidence and documentation, credible documentation that don't support outdoor. There's no guidelines, there's no state, federal, county, there's no outdoor masking. This is something that, I know it was August, I know we were just starting the school year when this MOU was signed, And I don't think February 1st is soon enough. And I would hope that the WTA could amend that before February 1st and remove these outdoor masks. The masks, because.
Can I step in for a minute?
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for
You
listening.
can stay.
I want to give you guys something, just a little. This is each county: Mendocino, Lake, Sonoma, Humboldt. We do outdoor masking. Humboldt does outdoor masking. Sonoma doesn't. Lake doesn't. And there's literally no difference. Maybe 1%. This is youth. This is youth cases. The percentage of youth cases in each county. There's literally 1% difference. If that. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Randrup. I'm a parent and I am a PE coordinator, and I just don't understand how they can sit down and eat outside right next to each other with their masks off, and that's okay, but they cannot go outside and take their mask off. My girls were used to playing soccer 3 days a week without their masks on. Soccer season's over. All right, we're bored, Mom. Took them to the park for 1 hour. My daughter comes up to me and says, Mom, when I'm at school at recess, I have to sit down after 20 minutes and breathe. And none of this makes sense, guys. None of it makes sense. They're sitting down eating every day with their masks off, but they cannot play outside. I've had 2 different students in the last 2 weeks, after 4 minutes of teaching PE, have a hard time breathing. I had a kid today that ran 3 laps, and he couldn't breathe. We need to be done with this. We need to be done.
Yes. I forgot. The cohort thing, I forgot one more thing. Every school, except Blosser, they're mingling. Blosser's still not mingling or they're still in cohorts. Can we change that? Blosser is still segregating classes. None of the other sites are doing that. Can we fix that? Can we fix the outdoor eating at Blosser, please? Please? Nancy, if you're here, can you hear me?
Hi, my name is Cheryl.
Speak loud, speak loud.
My name's Cheryl. Do you mind if I approach you guys with some pictures? My name is Cheryl. I have 4 kids. I used to have a 5th kid that was in your school last year. This is my daughter's beautiful face. So her face used to look, very similar to mine. So as you can tell, you can see right where the mask is going. And I know girls go through puberty, they're gonna get some acne, but when she's not in school, because she's sent home for 10 days because she's had close contact or we're on vacation, I'm able to clear her skin up. But you can tell by the mask where it goes, right? This is what's happening because the masks are literally, all the heat and everything is causing infection on her skin. So, this is another reason why. My daughter also has weak lungs, and she's wearing a mask all day. She's had RSV, she's had lung infections, and prior to COVID, you know, it was not healthy to wear a mask all day, and now the rules have changed. And I'm sure some of you guys have done research. I hope you guys have done research. I know I have done a lot. So, I'm here for a couple reasons, and I'm glad our principal from WEX is here. She can hear me. I know that you guys don't oversee WEX, but they are within your district. I'm a little upset with WEX because they have tested my child twice without my permission, so they're going to hear this at their board meeting, and I just want it stated on file here. It's about the safety of our children, but as I do more research, and I really hope that you guys would do more research. Those tests that we're testing our children for COVID have a lot of chemicals on them, and the ethylene oxide is a known carcinogenic, and we're shoving that up our kids' nose. And I know now it's only going on the edge of your nose, but still, that's known to cause cancer. A lot of these tests are coming back false positive. Currently, my daughter is on a 10-day modified quarantine because her friend, family member, tested positive at your high school. 0 symptoms, but because she's not vaccinated, she had to go home. Well, day 3, I said, hey, take another test. Didn't want her to take another test, but I knew that this child did not catch COVID. I just knew it deep inside. Guess what? Test was negative because it was a false positive. So unfortunately, she had to go down and take a PCR test, which again shoved in the nose. But at least it's not getting counted in our numbers. It's not getting counted at your school, and you will get that negative test versus a positive test in your system. Giving her some hippy-dippy stuff to clear her system out fully. But it sucks because here we're exposing our kids to chemicals, and give it 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to see a bunch of kids with cancer, you know? Are they going to be sitting here at a board meeting? I mean, are we going to be responsible for that? Do we have that on us to put our kids through that? I don't want to put my kids through that. I didn't birth them to literally send them to our community, to school, to be contaminated. So I wish you guys would do some research. You read that this school, your safety COVID plan, Ms. King, was to keep our children safe. But are you truly keeping our children safe? So I'm asking you to really consider the mask policy. Please get our kids back in the cafeteria. And I see that you guys are working towards that, and I appreciate it. Anyways, thank you for your time. If you truly care, and I think a lot of you do care about our children, please really research and reconsider what's happening with this COVID protocols. Thank you.
Anybody else on site would like to speak?
Me? Oh, go ahead.
You first.
Okay, so I work at Brookside School. So Vector Grove is open. Kids get a choice. Vector Grove serves. Blosser gets to serve food, but they serve, or they, it's packaged stuff just like what I'm serving at Brookside. I have to bag everything up, put it in a box, 500 bags a day, okay? Takes me 3.5 hours to bag all that food. If I served it, the kids could pick and choose. The waste is phenomenal. So if the kids got to come up and pick and choose what they wanted, they have to take a certain amount of stuff, but we wouldn't have as much waste, and the food would be warm. And most of it would be cooked, not packaged. The high school, I've talked to my boss. Each principal at our 4 sites, not counting Sherwood, they get to pick and choose if they want to open their cafeteria. Not okay. You guys, the same policy needs to be, we're one district, for all schools. Open the high school up. Let the kids indoors. If you have to add a few more lunches, well, Mike, get busy, add a few more lunches. Same thing at my school. Kathy, we need to serve the kids. So, it's just fair. We need to feed our kids better. And our hands are tied because we have to do what the principals want. Somewhere along the way, you guys need to step up and say, hey, next week we got snow coming, 30-degree weather. We need to feed our kids indoors. We need to feed them soup. We need to feed them spaghetti, not things out of a package. So please, Joe, talk to your principals, open up those cafeterias, let us serve food. Please. Thank you.
Well, before you start, if I could answer you just a little.
Yes.
I mean, especially as an employee in the district, you know how shorthanded everyone is. That's why
Yes.
you're doing beyond your contract, right? The issue is to have all, and this isn't the issue forever, as soon as a bunch of people tell a bunch of other people that there's a definite need for custodial help here. Instead of being down for custodians, we could maybe fill all those spots back. You'd have people cleaning the cafeteria, cleaning the area, doing the things that need to be done. Right now, there is no one. It was ridiculous to put children on a mat that was filthy. Okay, that's true. But when there's no one around to clean the mat, and the only solution a particular person could figure out to take care of the coldness of the cement, you have to consider it will cost more. Not really, it'll cost more, it should.
No, because
But-
we do have janitors on site. They're cleaning up anyways. They're picking up trash outside. I'm talking bags, garbage from
Tons
all the
of a mess.
I mean, lots of garbage.
What you have, when I.
Milk containers, everything.
Right, so if you
you're
look
still
at
going to
just-
have a certain amount if we
Well,
serve the
no,
food.
not here at the high school. They just got a day custodian
Yeah, you got
Monday.
Aquinas from
I
high school
know,
that
and you just
transferred.
got a brand new one at your school.
So my
The issue
suggestion,
is
Board,
you
when we
need
do this
employees.
negotiation, start paying your employees a little bit more.
Well, that's certainly
you know.
something the district
And when
has
I
brought
got
up.
hired, you know, it was about the insurance,
We're trying to
the
stay on
cow
subject.
peers,
We're trying to stay on subject.
you know, and
But it is an issue.
there's
for
a
us
school
to
in the
consider.
Bay
It's
Area,
not
it was
just
on Channel
custodians.
2 News, that couldn't
Can we
get
call
classified
Yeah.
employees,
We got it, we got it.
and they had to go distant learning.
Paula, do you have anything
So,
further?
you know.
No, just that there's more to it than just not doing it.
If you're gonna reiterate what you said before, I'm gonna ask you to sit down. If you have something new, we're glad to hear it from you.
I got something.
Go ahead.
About the ethylene oxide. It causes cancer. Do you know that? Do you know that? Do any of you know that? Have you bothered to look? No, right? No. None of you bothered to look. But meanwhile, you get all this government, federal funding to say, oh, we're concerned about safety, right? You're not concerned about safety. You guys want the money. You're going to do anything that they tell you to do in order to continue getting the money. You don't care about the parents. You don't care about the children. So don't be smug and sit here like you do. I know you don't like it, buddy, but you're going to listen.
Do you know what the
why?
board gets paid to do this? Do you know what the board gets paid?
Oh
to
yeah,
do?
your volunteers, but it's like $7 million that the UCI Unified got. Where'd all the money go? You can't put up a little tent for the kids. And are you seriously gonna discriminate between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated? Is that where this is going? You're gonna make the unvaccinated the pure-blooded children that are not contaminated with Bill Gates' mRNA technology? Are you gonna make those kids like they're germs? You know, that's what Hitler did. You guys are the SS in America. Hitler made the Jews, he told the German people after all that they did, that,
I'll have to respectfully disagree.
that the Jews
Yeah.
were dirty and they were diseased. And that was the last straw. That's what got them on the railroad cars out to the concentration camps. You
No.
can shake your head all you want.
Mister, I know
You
that
guys
part
are
of
bullies.
history
You guys
really
are
well.
bullying our kids. You don't even care. All you care about is the money. Don't sit here and look like you care about anything else than the money. Where did all that $7 million go? I don't see any improvements around here. Where did the money go? Where'd it go?
Do you have any
That's a
further
lot of
to
money
add?
just disappeared. Where's the plexiglass and all the stuff that you guys are supposed to have? This is ridiculous.
You're
This
entitled
is a
to your
Nuremberg
opinion.
Code situation. It may not happen today, but it will happen eventually.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, I'm a parent. And you guys are bullies. You're a bully. You are a bully. You're all bullying our children. You don't even care. Because all you care about is the money.
And so what's your alternative? Let's say that.
Okay, COVID's a joke. Let's do what Florida's doing. How's that for an alternative? New York, California, the blue states. And you're using our children for political pawns.
You are aware it's a public buildings.
Political
supposed to
pawns.
have a mask on?
California's the most communist besides New York. What are you guys gonna do? How far? You gotta stand up to bullies.
Well,
And I'm standing up to you guys. We're standing up to you guys. You guys are bullying our children. How far is it gonna go? Is it gonna go until they're rounding them up on train cars too after the concentration camp?
We have heard you. If you have nothing further to add, please sit down.
Well, let it sink in. Let it weigh on your conscience.
We've heard you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa.
You don't.
All right. Good job, man. I know you, right?
If you have nothing, something new to add.
Yes, new.
We can no longer hear what's going on in the room on Zoom.
Oh, that's
Something's going on with the microphones, just so you guys know.
We can hear you fine, Dawn.
They can't hear us.
That's convenient.
Can you hear that?
Test 1, 2.
How about this one? Can you hear this?
I still cannot hear.
Stand by, we are checking. Test 1, 2.
Richard, whatever you did kind of was working. We heard a little bit there.
Test 1, 2. How about now? Hello, can you read it? Can you hear us now?
No. No.
You sound muzzled.
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, take the stupid mask off and talk.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more test. Can you hear us now?
No. I think we lost you again.
How about now?
Now we can read. Yeah, now we can read.
Okay, so
Diane, what number are we on?
Thank you.
I just want to make this really short. Just second what the speaker was saying. My kids, I have one in each of the schools, and they have said that the food is inedible. They can't even. We make our own lunches, send them to school with lunches. They said the snack is okay. Lunchtime, forget about it. Can't do it. I said, don't they have like spaghetti or something? They said, we wish there was spaghetti. You know. So anyway.
thank you, thank you. Anybody else on site? Anybody in the Zoom world would like to speak?
Yes, I would like to share. Can
Go
you hear
ahead.
me okay?
Go ahead, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a mother. I have 3 children that go to the schools. And I spoke at the last meeting. And again, I do just want to voice my opinion about the situation at hand, which seems that it is unfortunate that a board that I would imagine would be full of educators and intellectuals would not look at both sides or multiple faceted sides to something that is a pretty hot topic situation right now. There is not one factual truth that's out there that is completely giving everyone the full story. And so with that, then we have to look at what makes the most sense for where we are and what makes sense for our children. What doesn't seem to be making sense right now for our children is having them to have to wear masks outdoors. I think that we can look to many sources other than just the one source that's out there that is giving the information that they should be wearing masks. There's multiple sources on top of that that are saying they don't need to. And so for a panel of educators, I would say it's very disappointing. Is not actually in here in this tree, and it's almost like there is a policy to uphold one source of information despite our faces. We have children in classrooms, we have teachers in classrooms who are dire for help, and we are upholding policies that are eliminating their access to have assistants or to have teacher or have parents in the classrooms. We have policies that sound like children are eating off the ground, and we're saying these are the policies we have to uphold. We have to, because of this one source of information, and everything else goes to the way. Our children's education is going to the wayside because of COVID policies that are completely overshadowing education. We are sending our children to educational facilities. That should be the utmost importance. And so when we have policies that are in place that are inhibiting their ability to learn, inhibiting their ability to have proper physical education, inhibiting the teachers from being able to educate properly. I mean, there's so many hoops that are being put in the way of what the children are there for. Education. Let that be something that we put to the foremost. And so right now, the mask policy for the children outside, I think, is one that is showing that we are not looking at what is best for the kids. And I heard someone say there before that they were saying, oh, we as teachers, we are here, we want the best for your kids, more than even, we want the utmost best for the kids. You don't want the best for the kids more than these parents do. Trust me, I want the best for my kids. I see parents there that want the best for their kids. And these policies are not showing and revealing that. I really would like to put on record that waiting for these deadlines or for these moments in time, oh, we'll wait till February 1st just to push it back again. Hey, guess what? When my kids got pulled out of school, I was told it was going to be 2 weeks. A year later, they're in school with mask policies and all kinds of different policies that are completely outlandish at this point. Especially when we can look at the numbers and we can see that there is the fear that is being institutionalized, there's no reason for it. We can look at the numbers. There are many sources of information to show that the policies that you are putting in place are not necessary for 0.006% infection rate. I would say, instead of saying we're going to push it back to this point, I'm saying if you can change a policy within a week before the kids came into school and said that they were going to now have to wear masks, I do not understand why we are waiting until February 1st to change the mask policy.
Okay.
It can be changed within a short amount of time, and you've proven that.
Can you wrap up your comments, please?
Excuse me?
Can you wrap up your comments, please?
Thank you for allowing this forum for us to speak and to share our voices, and I thank you for your strong consideration for changing your opinion and changing that policy as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else in the Zoom world would like to speak?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead.
My name is Kenneth Mansfield. I'm a teacher at Willis High School and a parent of a student at Blosser Elementary. And as both an educator and a parent overall, I've been really pleased with how the board has handled our return from distance learning. Distance learning was really hard for all of us, and coming back, we were able to come back, I should say, because of masking. And while it does present difficulties, I understand people don't like it, and it's very frustrating. This is how we come back safely. I feel safe coming to my site every day. I feel safe sending my student to school at Blosser because I know that those masking policies are keeping us safe. And I do see students regularly getting sick, leaving, interrupting their sports, interrupting their ability to do their studies. And so this policy of masking, I think, has been the most effective thing for keeping our students in the classroom, safe, studying, because when our students do get sick with COVID, they're out for a long time. Many of them get very sick, and it's really, really challenging when a student misses that much school. And so, for me, the masking is really doing wonders in keeping our students safe and keeping our students in class. The effectiveness of it is really awesome, and it's very simple, and most students that I have choose to wear them indoors, outdoors, and when they're not eating. That's what I see as largely at the high school. It's something that does seem to matter to our community, to keep each other safe. So I wanted to commend the board for their policy. I understand this is a very difficult time, and I just really appreciate the work you're doing keeping our schools safe right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
It's not that guy, you know.
Is there anybody else out in the Zoom world who'd like to address the board?
Hello, yes. My name is Amanda Lcsf. I teach chemistry at Willits High School, and I'd like to talk about the COVID-19 test. Ethylene oxide is an alcohol that's used to sterilize medical equipment like COVID testing swabs. And those COVID testing swabs are allowed time to dry for the alcohol to evaporate away before they are packaged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else in Zoom world?
I have one more question for you guys.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Hi, thanks for everybody doing everything that they're doing right now. I know times are really tough, and everybody's really stretched thin. I just want to say that I feel like the outdoor masking needs to end. It needs to end now. There's no proven facts that it's keeping us any safer. Kids are eating right next to each other without it on. I have multiple kids in the district, and I work for the school, and I just want to put my 2 cents in. I also emailed the board about it, and I feel like our opinion should be heard as parents and staff. So I know we have a lot to cover, so that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else in the Zoom world?
Yeah, this is Amy Grooms, and I just want to also, I'm a teacher in the district. I have students in the student in the district, and I too hope that changes can be made, that we can have students not have masks outside, and as a teacher, I can enforce it when they walk in my room. They follow my directions. I can put my finger up to my nose, and they know to put that mask over their nose. So I think that if we, I think we can still keep the classroom safe and let our children breathe outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out in the Zoom world?
Yes, please. This is Catherine McKay. I am a teacher at Bechtel Grove Middle School. I would like to echo the support in favor of our board in keeping our school students, faculty, and staff safe. I want to thank Amanda for bringing the science to the table. I do appreciate that. I do want to voice a concern, and hopefully the parents will listen, about the poor mask practices that our students are practicing. Today, again, in my classroom, I reiterated to my students that their fabric masks in good practice and hygiene must be washed in high temperature and dried on high heat daily, and also wearing their disposable masks for the recommended 8 hours and then disposing of them. They are not reusable. So my concern about the disease transmission, the other health issues that some of the students are experiencing, I need people to reflect upon what their hygiene practices are with regard to the masks. That's all. Again, thank you to our board for your support.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else in Zoom world? Seeing none. Anybody else here?
I just had a question. Will the new COVID safety plan reflect anything about parents being back allowed on campus to volunteer and help?
Right now we're worried about the mask issue right now.
So that the parents, there's no light for that?
Not at this stage, I think.
Because that would definitely help the district with all the lack of help. The parents coming back on site and helping would be huge. So.
I don't see how we would get around the testing requirements and things like that unless the superintendent can come up with a plan. It's something we can look at, but I don't think let's deal with one major issue at a time.
Okay.
Sir, you.
I'd like to speak. Thank you. My name's Scott. Glad to be here. You're all good people, and you intend well. I know that. And these people are good, and they intend well. I've been really trying to understand the bigger picture of what's going on with the whole COVID dynamic in the world, and particularly in this country. Like, there's a cult of safety, which the bureaucrats and the technocrats have been pushing, and it's gaslighting our culture. It needs to be health, needs to be the emphasis. What's being done to keep the kids healthy? And if there's kids that are objectively unhealthy, they're the ones that are at risk of this. None of the other kids are. And it's not fair to the kids that are healthy to do this to them. I went to public high school in Connecticut. I got an okay education, but I'm kind of resentful that it was ho-hum. And it was Connecticut, and it was an affluent area. But I can't imagine with this whole mask BS and the distraction of that, the polarization of that, what it's doing to undermine these kids' education. Like Janine was saying, it's like, that's first and foremost. And there's some kids that the culture is sickly and unhealthy as a populace. What's being done to improve the kids that are at risk? Because that's the issue. And if one of them dies or two of them die, is it a lawsuit that the school board's worried about, or the administration and the lawsuit could sink the school district? Because that needs to be looked at. People who are objectively unhealthy die of the flu, of cancer, of heart disease, of viral infections. That's part of life. These kids need to realize that. You're going to turn them into a bunch of safety pansy junkies. It's terrible. I don't have kids, but I feel it. It's like I'm livid about it. It's terrible. Like it's just like it's nuts. The culture's gone crazy. It's like this side of it. It's all there's wackos on this side of it. I get that. And conspiracy theory nut jobs. I'm trying to science is important, but it's not all about the science. It's like, what kind of world do we want to have? And the vaccinations is another issue, but I think that's egregiously wrong. It's no risk to 99+% of these kids. It's just stand up, have a backbone, figuratively grow some, do something for these kids. It's just nuts. It's this is Mendocino County. It's this. I moved here because it's I got out of crazy safety Lutheran Portland, Oregon, where everything's safe and people are all uptight and nervous and uncomfortable in their own skin. I moved here because this is a place of pioneers and back to the land people and soil people, and these things are nuts. It's just like, it's like, these kids aren't a vector of disease. I'm not. And if they get sick, so what? They'll build natural immunity against it. And if a few of them die, that's the natural law. That's how life works. And if they've had 2 years, there's been 2 years for the school, the public officials, parents, to get their kids healthier. And it's such a small percentage of them. Even the super unhealthy 17-year-olds, they're probably not going to die. They might go in the hospital, but I doubt it. It's just, yeah, it's got to be so disruptive to their education. And as a middle-aged person, education, I didn't get it when I was younger. Education's so important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else in Zoom world? Okay, we're going to close public comment and we'll go back to the board. So we are talking about item D, the COVID safety protocols.
Did everyone online get a chance to respond? Because that was a really short wait time. Because it's hard for us to hit unmute and all of that.
I have asked multiple times.
I have one thing.
Go ahead.
I have a student in the Willits Unified School District, and I'm just, after listening to all the public comment and the board comment and teachers speak, I'm just wondering if the masks work so well, then how come kids are still getting colds and other sicknesses that are supposedly less contagious than COVID? My own daughter's had 3 colds in the last, since school started in August, and I'm also an advocate for having the kids have at least their masks off outside. I mean, hopefully at one point they won't have to have their masks indoors either, but the outside masking seems a little bit ridiculous at this point. There's no other place in the county that we have to wear masks outside except for on school property. And to me, it just seems like they maybe aren't working as well as everybody thinks if kids are still spreading colds and other sicknesses from school, wearing masks indoors and outdoors except for eating. So that's pretty much all I have to say, but
thank you.
I'm sure there's.
Once again, anybody in the Zoom world would like to speak? You have to hit unmute and speak.
Put up a 3-minute timer.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to close public comment. So we're done with D, and now we're at E, consideration for an update of the COVID safety plan.
And so the plan that was attached, the only update that I provided in that was we had updated sports guidance that came out, and so it changes while students are actively playing our indoor sports, that they can remove their mask while actively playing when they're on the sidelines, or the coaches or anyone else involved still needs to be masked. And the students will have to test twice weekly, as we have been doing with our athletes throughout the year. With that does align with the state and local guidance around the topic.
Okay.
Can we comment on that at all? Can you inform your blonde teacher? Kim knows who she is. Because she goes in the basketball games and freaks out on all the players. And makes a big scene. What is her name? Miss Erickson. Yeah. And it's really embarrassing for the students.
I'm not aware of the issue.
Miss Erickson comes into the game and freaks out in front of everybody, places the mask, and the kids are sitting there playing sports, and she freaks out about the mask.
I think that can be reasonably easily dealt with.
If I could speak to that, I am attending the basketball games at Bethel Grove, and I've seen Ms. Erickson interact with kids, and saying that she is freaking out is just really an exaggeration of what an administrator at a school district needs to do to enforce what's expected. And anyway,
I'd like to speak.
I have not seen Mackenzie freak out. I've seen her ask students to put their masks on when they're sitting, and parents sitting in the bleachers. It's something that the school district is asking her to do, and she's just trying to follow through on what she's expected to do.
Cool.
And I appreciate Mackenzie.
Thank you, Jeannie. Can I speak to that for a moment?
Briefly.
2 seconds. I definitely don't freak out, but I definitely make sure that the people that are indoors and not playing remain masked, as our school district is requiring people to do. I'm sorry that I have to make people follow expectations. So I was just there at the game tonight and went around to everybody at the game tonight who was not masking. I have to do it to really great friends, and it's uncomfortable, but yet I'm an employee of the school district and an administrator at the site, and that's what our expectation is of people indoors at a game. I'm sorry you feel that way.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
I'll report her next time.
So we are looking at consideration of an update for the COVID safety plan. Are there any other changes that the board would like to make at this point?
I would just like to say that something that I didn't realize when I became a member, or when I was elected to the board, was how the dance that has to be done in order to accommodate contractual language with the teachers, contractual language with CSEA in regards to making changes. And that if you can't just decide to make a change and make a change if there's language in the contract which pertains to the change that you want to make. You have to work it out with the unions in order to make those changes. And it would be nice if the board could just make changes unilaterally, but we can't do that. We have to take into consideration the language in the contracts, as well as what's best for the students, as well as what's best for our school sites. And it's not an easy dance to do, and something that's really hurt me deeply tonight is people making assumptions about what I think and how I think, and what my motivations are, and where my heart is at, when none of the people who've spoken have talked to me about what my understanding is. And I make a point of treating parents who cross my path, people in the community, with dignity and respect. And I hope that it can be reciprocated. So.
We all come from different backgrounds, different positions. I'm currently the only person on the board that does not have that did not have a career in public education. Instead, mine was as a firefighter paramedic for the last 38 years. It is very true that in many cases we err in my job on the side of caution. And people were treated and transported to hospitals frequently when they could have easily gone in their own car or taken a taxi or a bus or whatever, and they'd have been just fine, but we put them in an ambulance because there was the potential for something to go wrong. If we roll back the clock to when this MOU was first created, as Joe Aldridge will attest, we were dealing with a massive blow up of the Delta variant. And at that point in time, there was a lot less data on how masks were affecting things. However, the data that was available at the time strongly suggested that masks, especially masks indoors, were effective in not stopping the transmission of the disease. We know that to be not the case, but in slowing the transmission of the disease so that our health systems were not overwhelmed. Some states took it very seriously. Some states didn't. Unfortunately, this was politicized to the point where it's hard to believe. But those that took it seriously kept their numbers down to where their health systems were not overwhelmed too terribly. And those that didn't, unfortunately, had disaster. We can all take a look at all the various sources of information that are out there, whether you want to look at something that's a complete denial of COVID, or you want to look at something that says COVID's the worst disease that ever came down across the planet. And there's everything in between. And you're asking us to take sides on this issue. We don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a physician. I happen to be a board member that's serving here as a volunteer with 4 others. We are trying to take all the information that you give us, take huge amounts of information that have been thrown at us from the political side and the scientific side and everybody in between, and try to muddle through all that information and find a way to bring your kids back into the classroom and keep them safe. Not just keep your kids safe, but also keep the staff safe here. And part of keeping the staff safe here is they need to feel safe. Not just, we can't just tell them that it's okay. They need to feel safe in their work environment. Masking is a problem. I don't like it. Current data indicates to me, and I'm looking at the CDC, the health department for the state of California, and the Mendocino County Health Department. Masking tells me outdoors it's no longer viable or useful. It has very little effect on the transmission of the disease. And I look at the COVID plan not from an educational standpoint, but strictly from a position of, is it helping us keep our people safe? And I'm talking about kids, staff, and our community at large. I don't see that the outdoor masking is contributing to keeping people safe today. Now I have to turn around and look at the other side of the coin. When this contract was entered into with the district and the WTA, we were trying to get our teachers and our staff back on campus to take care of kids and teach them. At the time, the information that we had indicated that outdoor masking and indoor masking was not a bad idea. Now we are at several months later. We are asking to get rid of outdoor masking. WTA has moved the goalpost. They have moved it. Normally this would go on for the rest of the school year, but they agree that it's time to move the goalpost. They have agreed to move it up to February 1st, rather than waiting till the end of the school year. So I commend the WTA for doing at least that. Would I like more? Yes, I would. So we as a board, we are faced with 2 choices. Do we keep it the way it is and run it out until February 1st, which really equates to what, about 5 more weeks of school? Or do we take a contract that we have entered into in good faith with the WTA and tell them, no, we no longer value this contract and we are going to throw this out with the bathwater? We'd be sending a really, really bad message to the WTA if we did that. It would have implications on contractual negotiations between us and both labor groups for long periods of time to come.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Public comments over. We are,
Who's the WTA? Who is the WTA?
WTA is Willis Teachers Association. They're a labor group.
Who makes the guidelines though?
It's his.
I know, but I thought when I was part of the agenda that you guys would respond to me, and you have not responded to me.
I'm responding right now.
Who's the people that make that requirement? I'd like to know.
I'm not sure exactly the question you're asking, but let me address it this way.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
When
I apologize.
When we entered into that contract was mutual between the Willits Unified School District and the WTA. The data that we had available at the time indicated that, again, masking both indoors and outdoors was appropriate. Today, I would agree with the data that you've provided that suggests, this is me, I'm not talking to the rest of the board. I would agree that masking outdoors is no longer necessary. Again, there's a contract between the WTA and the Willits Unified School District. That contract is binding, and we have a choice. We can choose as a board to ignore that contract and deal with whatever legal fallout comes from that. But again, we're also talking about what that causes historically moving forward. What does that really mean if we just disagree with a particular element of their labor contract? We no longer think that we should pay them this amount of money. We no longer think that we should give them health care. We no longer believe that we should do whatever. My point is the contract is important as well.
But
So
why can't they change the contract? Why can't
the district has asked the WTA to move the goalpost. I would appreciate if the WTA would move the goalpost further. But again, it's not up to me.
I know, I
Okay?
understand that.
And it's not up to the board to force the WTA to move to a different position either. Okay?
But
And I'm not telling, and
a lot
again,
of the WTA
hold on.
doesn't want that.
And I'm not telling the WTA that they're wrong in the position that they're in. That's not it at all. I'm more concerned about, we have a contract, and I believe that if we negotiated that contract in good faith, both parties need to observe that contract. The district has made a request to the WTA to reevaluate outdoor masking. Again, the WTA took that request and they did come back with a counter proposal or a proposal to eliminate outdoor masking as of February 1st. I understand that that is not necessarily the best solution for everybody, but it is what's on the table tonight.
But who are these few people that dictate the entire district? That's my only question.
They're not dictating to the entire district.
And they're not a few people.
They are.
Public comments are closed.
That's true.
Nobody's
Thank you,
talking.
Tracy.
There are approximately 100 people
But I
out there.
didn't get a response from you guys. I was on the agenda to get a response. Like, what about Blosser? Are you guys going to talk to Blosser tomorrow about eating on the ground? Are you guys can the WTA address me right now?
I can absolutely guarantee you, because I've been watching Joe take notes, I can absolutely guarantee you that everything that we've talked about tonight is going to get addressed.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful right now. I just don't feel like you guys responded to me.
Some of the things you're asking for are things that we as a board don't necessarily have a direct answer to until we've had an opportunity to discuss it with our superintendent, and he's had an opportunity to discuss these things with his staff.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I apologize.
Does WTA and the school board realize that there is a group of us working right now to create our own school? Do you guys realize that? It's not a threat. I'm just bringing it. It's not a threat. I'm just bringing that to our attention, and I will bring it to your guys' attention that I am a founder of Willis Charter School, Willis Elementary Charter School. So it's not unattainable goal for us to create a school that I don't have to work with the feds or the state. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to move on.
Okay.
Does any other rest of the board like to talk about the COVID safety plans? Is there a motion to approve the COVID safety plan as amended by staff?
I'll move that we approve the COVID safety plan as it's written up here.
Is there a second?
What, to have the February 1st?
No, that's.
We will deal with that momentarily.
This is the athletics.
So what are we
right?
approving?
The athletic portion.
It's basically the COVID safety plan has been adjusted to deal with changes the way the athletes work.
Okay, yeah.
Would that be reasonable, Joe? Correct? Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Is there any further question or debate about the COVID safety plan?
In regards to the athletes.
In regard to the, well, athletes or,
Any other changes?
we can make a, you can make a motion to make a change beyond what's already there.
I would just like to ask teachers in the school district to talk to their union representatives, just to voice their own understanding and their own concerns and their own viewpoints, so that there's a consensus. So anyway, I would just like that, because I know that there's some teachers who feel differently than the union does, and I just hope that there's a dialogue between the union and some of the staff that doesn't see the same as the union does.
Thank you. Is there a second to approving the COVID safety plan as it has been amended?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? please
I'd
say-
like to make a proposal that the,
Mute them.
Public comments over.
Any further discussion with the board?
that the outdoor mask policy,
Thank you.
no, comments are closed. That
Comments
the
are-
outdoor mask policy change
Public comments are closed. Thank you.
January 3rd.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward.
Aye.
Been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are at the first interim budget. But I'd like,
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest that we move
yes, exactly.
item G up, and then we can move on to the first interim budget after that.
So we're now under item G. This is the approval of the MOU between the Willis Unified School District and Willis Teachers Association. And you want to talk specifically about that, Joe, or you want me to take it?
I think that we have talked about it quite a lot this evening. I mean, it's a pretty, the document itself is pretty straightforward and just mentions that it would remove the outdoor masking requirement as of February 1st within the MOU.
Okay. So on this particular, let's see, well, first of all, is there a motion to approve?
I approve.
The motion? Is there a second? We'll have a discussion immediately after.
I'll second.
And seconded, motion seconded. This is an MOU between the Willis Unified School District and the Willis Teachers Association. This modifies the COVID safety plan, essentially eliminating outdoor masking effective February 1st of 2022. Again, the WTA has recognized that outdoor masking is not as important as it once was. I know that the logic behind choosing February 1st was that there is typically a spike in cases after the holidays, and that's been proven out over the last year and a half, 2 years almost. The idea is that hopefully whatever spike in this, we'll have an opportunity to identify that, and it'll have run its course by the time we reach February 1st. There's a certain amount of logic behind that, but again, we all have our different opinions on whether or not the outdoor masking will have a significant impact on it. So that's where we are. Any further discussion by the board?
You know, I haven't said a whole bunch on this. I've been listening. Of course, I've seen all the research done, and it's changing as we move along. And this situation with outdoor masks, I mean, children are low risk. A number of them have already been vaccinated. Then I hear that we're going to have take-home tests. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Where we can test the kids. to see, so it'll give us more information. And then I hear we're gonna have a prescribed treatment that we can get from our local drugstore, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And there's not much difference between districts with or without masks outside. I've been working in Ukiah, and nobody wears masks outside. Well, actually, quite a few, about 50% wear masks, 50% don't. Adults and kids don't have to wear masks. There's not much difference.
But it's voluntary.
Right, outside. You don't have to wear them. But, and we have a number of passionate people here. Personally, I coach the honors team. We don't wear masks. We're outside, we're swimming, and we don't wear masks there. Whether that's right or wrong, depends on which side you're on, but nobody that I know of has gotten COVID from swimming, and we've been not wearing masks for quite a while. So personally, I kind of lean towards, we don't need to wear masks. We have a lot of interventions now. We have testing, children are at low risk, and we don't need to wear masks. However, we are in contract. I'd really exhort our superintendent to talk with WTA and see if we can bring that day sooner. We have a lot of passionate parents here. They need to be heard. We have to consider that as a board. It's not so black and white, contract breakers or not wearing masks outside. I think we don't have to just close this door, but I will vote for this because a bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush, right? So at least we know that's going to be taken off February at the latest. But we really need to look at this. This is really a concern. And obviously with all the lunch things and everything else, that has to be considered. That needs to be taken care of. But let's see if we can work together and make this earlier. I don't see why we could not. We're a great community. We can get things done. We can work together, find a middle ground. It's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Robert. Very well said. Anybody else? Okay, it's been motioned and seconded for the MOU to eliminate masking outdoors as of February 1st. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I believe we are now at first interim. Nikki?
So I will start by saying that the Lcsf funding, no major changes than what we were looking at the August revision. So there was an update that we had done once already after the adoption took place in June. So we did one update in August. LCFF revenue-wise, we're still generally on track with that. We're trying to keep a close eye, obviously, on enrollment. We are using a lower attendance rate than what we have in past years because what we're seeing is that we're right around 90%. And so ultimately, the enrollment is a little bit higher than what I had projected at the August revision, but our attendance rate is lower than the rate I was using at that time. I think it was 92.5 for current year. So it's like higher enrollment, lower attendance rate, and ultimately that leaves us relatively stable as a net outcome for the calculation of the revenue. Some other obvious changes when it comes to the revenues have to do with the one-time COVID funds. So those are incorporated, and we have planned them out across the years of those programs. So they have various expiration dates, and we are trying to be strategic in our use of those funds to ensure that we use the funds that have the soonest expiration dates first and are able to put some programs in place and keep them going as long as we can within the total scope of these funding expirations. I did want to point out something that we should update you just in terms of how the revenue gets booked. So when it comes to the revenues, we see both state and federal sources related to COVID. There are two different requirements in terms of how we book those revenues. And for the state revenues, we are required to show the funds coming in, and then if they're not being used perhaps until a later year, they are in the fund balance until they get used. For the federal resources, we don't book the revenue until the year in which it is actually expended. So perhaps for ESSER 2 or 3, we know that the allocation is set at a certain level, but if we're not planning to spend it until 22, 23, or 23, 24, it shows up as the revenue in the year in which it would be spent. So I just want to clarify that because it can make it a little bit challenging when you're looking at those revenues kind of going up and down in the multi-year projection, and it has to do with that big accounting distinction between those two categories.
So we see that in the multi-year projections.
Correct. That is correct. And so when I'm working with the federal sources, I'm analyzing what our expected flow of the expenditures will be, and then matching the booking of the revenue to that cycle. When we're dealing more with the state funds, typically it's the money comes in and maybe you'll see it on the restricted fund balance until it gets used. So I just wanted to clarify that. That's kind of always the case. So we see that with things like Title I, Title II, those are federal sources where we have what they call unearned revenue, is what they call that, as opposed to maybe a state source like our educator effectiveness funds, which will come in and be in fund balance until used. We did have a couple of other programs come on board since we did our August revision. So that would be the educator effectiveness, which I believe you guys will be looking at the final approval of that later this evening. We also have what they're calling, I believe, the A to G Success and Access Grant or implementation. There's a couple different names going around, but it has to do with some extra supports at high school level, ensuring students are able to have access to A to G requirement completion. And so that's a state source that has come on board since the last time we looked at the budget. In terms of the expenditures, what we really focus on updating here is the use of primarily of these one-time funds. So if we have like the educator effectiveness, we updated based on what the expected plan is. We have updated to incorporate the aid that's being put in place for the A to G program. The special ed department, I believe Kelly has updated you all on a plan that they had done related to significant disproportionality, and that included several positions such as the social worker, which is actually tied to multiple of our plans, as well as 2 behavioral aid positions or student intervention type positions, I believe they're called. Excuse me. And so we do see some additional salary benefits related to the implementation of various of these plans. One piece of good news is that in regard to our transfers out, which is for our food service program, we did see some relief on the reimbursement rates that are in place for the meals, and so we anticipate that bringing in some additional revenue. So I have reduced the expected transfer out that would go into the food service program, which is great news. We are still a bit higher than we would like. Some of that, we're just in a really difficult point in time still in terms of budgeting that program, simply because it's such an unusual situation. We've had no really good period of time to do good projections based on, because it's just been, you know, the implementation of CEP, and then we're into the, like, you know, being at home, and now we're back on campus, so, you know, trying to figure out what the participation rates will look like has been challenging. So we remain conservative in our approach, but feel very optimistic about that additional revenue that came into that program. We are still also providing a bit of additional support. I believe it's about $40,000 a year to the food service program as part of one of the COVID funding plans. So it was part of that ELO program, and then that's supported across the multiple years through ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And ultimately, you can see that for current year, we are not in deficit spending. Based on current projections, it looks like we would go into some deficit spending, but I think less than what we were anticipating earlier in the year. So that's kind of the main points I wanted to hit. Oh, one more point. In regards to the calculation of the reserve for economic uncertainty, in June, the board adopted the policy regarding maintaining a fund balance of 17%. And so I just wanted to highlight for you that that is the policy that was used to develop the reserve for economic uncertainty across all 3 years. And that policy language also included that we would exclude any expenditures that were single funding source over $200,000. And what that does is help protect that reserve level from being sort of artificially spiked. If you have like the big one-time fund programs coming in, kind of keeps it at a more stable level. And so the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 were the programs that exceeded that $200,000 amount. So those were excluded when I calculated the 17%.
Very good.
Can I ask you just one thing?
Of course.
On all of these cost of living adjustment places, there's never anything in there that I can find.
Which?
Well, all of them on the, I'm on the third.
Oh, cost of living. Yeah, we don't budget something in particular to cost of living. What we budget is the step-in column.
Yeah, no.
So step-in column is like the known change based on movement, and I use 1.5% as the basis for that. After I have deducted out any anticipated or estimated, not anticipated, but estimated retirement savings, so that we don't overshoot it.
Yeah. Well, so kind of my question is when, like for this year, there was supposed to be around a 5% cost of living increase.
So that's on the revenue. That is factored in, and that is in the LCFF revenue. So there's an entire calculator worksheet that the county does to help us get to our LCFF estimate, and it is based on our unduplicated count, our enrollment, our ADA, and then the state factors such as what is the COLA, and what is the Prop 90 funding, and all of those pieces. So the revenue COLA is in fact included for current year 5.07 or something like that. And then this calculator is still using the second year, I think was at 2.48, and then low threes, I think, in the final year. So we'll likely see another update on that when we get to second year.
Okay, but we just won't see it separated out. It's in, when you
It's
say
incorporated.
LCF?
Yeah, LCFF is, that's like kind of our main category of money, and it does factor in the revenue pool.
It was in all, it's in like 4 sections, cost of living, and every one of them's blank. I didn't know you added them all.
I think some of the larger districts will sometimes place in there an expected cost increase, but that's not necessarily tied to the revenue cost of living.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're two different pieces.
Oh, thanks.
The COLA, is that across the board for both state and federal funds?
It can be selective. So, for sure, the LCFF, I think that they were doing special ed was going to receive a COLA. Sometimes it's the same COLA, sometimes they're separate COLA. Like some programs will have like individual increases or COLA, so it's not enough across every single one of the funding sources.
It's very encouraging that a COLA for next year, they're actually talking about providing a COLA for transportation, which they have not
That
done
hasn't happened, yeah.
since LCFF came into
It's
existence.
been
right?
flat this
Yeah.
whole time, and so ultimately, like, it's just been on districts to use LCFF funding to make up that difference.
Is there a motion to approve budget? There's a motion, is there a second?
I can second.
Seconded by Paula. Any further discussion to board? Hearing none. All in
I
favor?
just want to say how much I appreciate Nikki and her ability to communicate in regards to financial issues and her good job on budgets.
I'm understanding it better and better each time.
There's a lot of layers, I know, too.
I agree, wholeheartedly. Thank you, Nikki. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are at public hearing, sunshine negotiations.
So we have the sunshine from CSEA to us on the agenda for last month. This month this is our openers back to them. Again, I would like to bring this back to you next week when we schedule our organizational meeting, so we can approve that, and I can work with CSEA to schedule some dates and get rolling on this process. This is for a successor contract starting in the 22-23 school year. The articles we would like to open, in addition to salary is always something that's on the table to negotiate. These other things are in addition, that we would like to work with CSEA to adjust the appropriate dates within the article. It's pretty standard. With pay and allowance, that we would like to propose language changes to item J, step advancement, and item L, early retirement within this article. In Article 7, that we would, in medical and dental benefits, that we would like to propose a change in regards to the district contribution to the health and welfare benefits. In Article 10, transfers and vacancies, the district would propose language to modify Section M, backfilling, and I think that was actually taking care of some issues there. And then Article 19, professional growth, that we would be changing the reference to from assistant superintendent in Section A, just as I say, cleaning up that information as well there.
Do we have a date for the meeting next week?
We do not, so that would be something we would need to discuss. Forgot to ask you that earlier during the comments, sorry.
So, it is a public hearing. Is there any comments from the public regarding the sunshine of the CEA to and WSD?
I got one. Did I hear that correctly, that you're gonna pull this till the next meeting?
No.
Okay. No, we have to bring it back at the next meeting, Dan, for approval. At this one, we can only hear it openly, and then the next meeting is when the board will approve
Okay,
it.
just to understand the procedure.
Certainly.
So, are there any other comments with regard to the public hearing? Anybody in the Zoom world? Anybody else here? Hearing none, then we will close the public hearing on item H and move on to item I, approval of job descriptions and salary schedule, maintenance 1 and maintenance 2, classified staff.
So as we had discussed with the consent agenda, the maintenance 1 and maintenance 2, I approached CSEA asking if we could have some motion there so that we can recruit better for our maintenance positions. CSEA and I entered into some conversation about that. We worked together to get these 2 job descriptions together. We also, with the salary schedule for the maintenance 2, really looking at other regional competitors, what are they paying, and it's a rate that reflects that. That is a rate that I actually suggested with the thought that at least sets the standard as we start into negotiations for kind of where we want to shoot with some of our other positions as well. So just trying to be a little proactive in that situation and make sure that we were moving in the right direction.
So because we chose to not deal with the MOU part of this, I would argue that item I should be moved to the next board meeting as well.
At the board's pleasure, yes.
The rest of the board have a feeling on this? Because until we actually deal with the MOU portion of it, those two jobs positions really don't exist.
Is that what Paula requested, take off
Yes.
the consent agenda?
Right. So we'll agendize item 6 from the consent agenda and item I in our next board meeting, which we have yet to set a date for the special meeting. And we can move on to item J, approval of job description salary schedule for van drivers.
And so we were creating this position because we have some folks who are completing that job description, but we did not have an existing job description to encapsulate that. So in order to be accurate in how our employees are working, we wish to have that in place, and CSEA agreed with us in that regard. This will allow them also to be appropriately compensated, because it's really out of class work that we didn't have a classification set up for. So this fixes several problems with those particular positions.
So we're gonna decide first and then do questions, right?
No, we'll
Do questions.
if somebody wants to make a motion. I'll move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So now let's discuss it.
Good. I have some questions.
Just for clarification, the idea behind the motion, getting a motion and a second before you discuss, is if you don't get a motion and a second, it dies for lack of, therefore there's no need to discuss.
You know, I hadn't thought that one in. Oh, okay. Thank you.
You bet. So go ahead, Paul.
Oh, good, now that I can discuss. No. I have some questions about this, just because it doesn't say anything. I mean, when we kind of spoke of it earlier, it had to do with dealing with people who would drive before school or after school, like getting people back and forth, right? But it also talks about field trips in here and things like that, and I know that some classes take field trips during their day, and so the aide usually accompanies, the paraprofessional usually accompanies them, and my understanding with at least 2 aides is that they are the drivers. So what I'm not understanding is, do they then do that as a part of an aide position or as a part of a van driver position? And then what do they do about their salaries and their hours so that it's all straight?
Sure. So in the contract, we do have provision for out-of-class work and how we would handle that.
Mhm.
So I would consider that out-of-class work in that situation, even though it kind of blurs a line.
Yeah.
But this allows us to actually have a classification where that's met.
And I think there are 2 different situations that have occurred for us, which is that we do have a situation where there needs to be a separate person for the driver. We also have the situation where we have just need for more transportation, and there are some folks willing to do vans for that. So I think both things have occurred, right? Aides and van drivers.
Okay, and so if an aide does, say, an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon, and puts in their 6-hour day, then these 2 hour and a halves become a separate job with a different pay. They don't become time and a half for overtime for that.
Well, no, if they were already working 6 hours and then
Yeah.
we're doing 3 hours on top, yes, that would be overtime and we wouldn't work out. No, they would still max out at 8 hours per day. We don't really issue any contracts about that.
Okay.
But I don't believe we have anybody who's been working more than that. We've had Linda make sure to keep an eye on that for us and keep that situation, help us address it if it does come up.
Okay, and so what if they're not in that classification? It would still apply to them? I mean, what if they were a custodian who drove in the morning, no, drove in the afternoon, did custodial work in the morning, and it ends up being over 8 hours, they're considered a different job and
Then
not.
it becomes over. You do have overtime, but we
Yes.
can't assign it as like a permanent position when it's over.
And
that
we're
much.
looking for
But
a
like if
permanent
it's-
position here?
Well, the classification allows us to do either. I mean, so if we have the classification of job description and the salary schedule, we have the ability to say, okay, we need somebody who's gonna do whatever, 3 hours a day steady, doing the driving. Or if something comes up, and let's say we have a bus driver out sick, and we just are piecing together some transportation solutions, and
Right.
somebody does it, you know, on a short-term basis, extra duty, either could be possible, because now you have the job description and salary schedule by which to pay people.
So are you giving the job to somebody, or are you just having people fill in? So you don't have to pay insurance, or they, no?
If we were.
If it's ongoing, we have to post it.
It could go both ways?
So what we're saying is it creates a class so that there's if someone's working out of class, we can pay them appropriately. We'll also have some jobs associated with this that we'll post and go through the process for as well.
That becomes somebody's position.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, and the contract specifies, like, you can only do so many days without addressing it, like, you know, if it becomes a position.
Right,
Or if
right, I
somebody's
get
doing it
that.
a certain number of days, it sort of like becomes like.
And then they have to take 4 days off or 5 days off, then they come and do it again. So you just wanna contract this out to people for 2 hours, 3 hours, give them 8 hours or 7 hours.
In some cases,
But my
yes.
question is, do they have to pay insurance like everybody
the
else
ins-
at 6.5
So
hours?
the insurance, yeah, so the thresholds for mandatory insurance, the enrollment, are based on the JPA, the Staywell JPA.
I mean, it
bylaws.
would help the people that are already paying insurance, because now they're getting 2 more hours. But the ones that are 6 hours and they don't want the insurance, but they'd like that 2 hours.
Right. We
Because the
don't-
insurance is costing them $400 a month or
And
close.
that has come up multiple times where we've had employees sort of say, no, I don't want the
Right.
insurance. And, we don't have the flexibility on allowing people to not enroll when they're over a certain threshold, and it's because that's what the bylaws of Staywell state. So we.
So you definitely have to get the people that want to do it, that are already paying
Yeah,
insurance,
and we
and it helps
definitely make
towards
sure
that.
that, like, if somebody's applying, and let's say they already have a position, and then they're applying for extra hours in a new position, Linda and Trina definitely communicate with those folks up front about what the ramifications would be if they take on those hours.
I mean, because the insurance for 2 more hours, that's a lot of money going out for insurance. Some people, it's not worth it.
Right, and some people want the insurance, some
Right.
people don't, it depends on kind of their personal situation, but yes, that has,
It's,
it has come up.
you know, I'm all for opening up jobs and stuff, you know, but, you know, so. I was just wondering how you were gonna do that.
So, any further discussion on the van driver job description? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are at item K.
Right, so item K is our educator effectiveness grant. We brought this forth as a discussion item in November. We have it this evening to be approved. I haven't gotten any feedback beyond what was in the meeting at that time, and so I think it covers the purpose of the grant, and I've received no other feedback, so it's at unchanged from that point. And we'll pay primarily, space myself out here a little bit, for our teacher induction program and our current on-site coaching support that we have in place. And that'll allow us to continue those programs through the 25-26 school year. So it definitely gives us some continuity in programs that we think are being beneficial to our students.
Okay, is there any, a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve. Right, okay.
Jeannie's made the motion to approve, is there a second? The motion is seconded, Jeannie and Diane. Is there any discussion? I got one question. Has it changed from November?
It has not.
And is there,
So are these for the, was it teachers that don't have a credential yet, or is this?
No, this is more, well, the coaching is for any teacher that,
Okay.
that needs that support. The induction program is for teachers who need to clear their credential upon initially getting their credential. They have 5 years in which to clear it. And so this, we generally have a lot of resource that goes into that to support that, about $50,000 a year, I believe. And so this grant helps relieve some of that burden on the general fund for those expenditures.
We do provide, so the $50,000 is through, what do we call it, North Coast School of Education now? It used to be VITSA, now it's called something else. But that, the like first and second year folks enroll in that. We do also provide mentors for anybody who is on like an intern or PIP or, you know, the various other ones. So it's not necessarily through the same program, but they are still provided an in-house support person.
Is Better Lesson supported under through this?
It is not. We're actually using our ELO funds, I think, this year.
Might be Title II.
Or Title II.
I'd have to check. I don't remember off the top of my head. One or the other.
Just curiosity more than anything else. So the plan has been motioned and seconded. Some further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. So, items for the next regular board meeting. Actually, I got to roll back a little bit further. There seems to be a fair amount of concern about how we're dealing with lunches and so forth outside. Is it possible to see if the health department would be willing, county health department would be willing to send somebody up to observe our practices and let us know if we are outside of the rules and give us some guidance on how they might suggest we deal with it? And I'm sure that they're dealing with it with other agencies as well.
Well, I talked to the health inspector, and they're pretty laxed right now because of the COVID. I mean, all these guidelines that everybody has is kind of been set aside just so we could get the kids back to school, so things have been laxed a lot.
It might be, but.
Which makes a lot of sense.
I get that. There's some things they can relax on, but I'm sure that there are some things that they won't budge on. And I want to make sure that we are at least
I
within
think
the guidelines.
the main concern for the parents is getting them off the ground. Because, you know, you sit out there for 30 minutes and, you know, it's 30 degrees or 40 degrees. Next week's going to be cold. And it's cold. It's cold for you. It's cold for me. I wouldn't want to eat outside on the ground. But it would be nice to just open up all the cafeterias. If 2 of them can do it, serving the kids, why can't all 4? You know, why can't all the principals get together and figure this out? And I think that would make a lot of parents happy. And the kids.
Donaldson. We're moving on. Moving
All
on.
right.
Moving on.
Well, thanks guys for listening
You're
to
welcome.
me. I get kind of emotional. Thank you.
Some of the things I've seen is they have put
thanks.
like cohorts of kids in together. So they'll do grade level and they rotate and they have a lot more lunches. But they have a smaller group of kids in the cafeteria at one time because of the cold and rain.
Whatever we're doing, we should be looking for some consistency across all of our sites wherever we can do that. But it appears we have a little more homework to do, a little more work to do.
So I want to,
Food selection is a concern.
I just want to say is that we combined cafeterias because the cafeteria, the food program was losing so much money. And so when Mark was superintendent, we he looked at what other school districts were doing and what we were doing. And the decision was made to cook at Bechtel or Blosser and at the high school, and then transfer food over. And so I don't know if the packaging and the kind of food that is being served is because of the decision decision to transfer food from two cafeterias, or if it's because of COVID and for safety reasons and touching things.
I know that the plan was to be able to provide hot meals at all the sites, utilizing the new tools that we purchased to put in place.
Yes, and we did purchase one, so it's like romaine
We got
containers for
we got
transport.
we got a big truck with a lift gate. We've got a van kind of truck with a lift gate. I know that we've got the stuff that the food can go into those things and keep it hot when it goes from site to site. I just don't know how well we're utilizing all that.
We're not,
I think
because of
COVID
the
has
building.
thrown a big monkey wrench
It
into
has.
everything.
But I'll meet with Christie and see what we can get together. We're also going to be pulling our wellness committee together, so we'll be putting out invitations for that as well. So if the board's interested, please reach out, and we can have two members on there as well. So that we can start to move forward on this issue, because it's gonna be, I mean, it's always a big deal, but it's gonna be a big deal coming out of this, so that because we will be feeding all students from this point forward. The state of California has said that that's what we're doing, and I agree with that, so it's a big undertaking that we have there.
All students meaning 0 to 18?
Meaning all of our in-school students,
Oh, like
and it'll be no cost to the student or parents. So.
You know, the kettle that Mark bought is pretty cool, except for he bought the wrong one. It's
makes it
not
less cool.
quite set up right to clean it. You have to run a hose across the cafe. It's about, what, 6 feet down? From the from the sink to the kettle to clean it out. You have to use 5-gallon buckets to dump it. It's just not set up right. And that thing gets extremely hot. And you actually, for all of us women, to get in there and clean that, your body's hanging over it. And you need we need a step, but he bought the wrong one. And the place where it is, it's not set up right at all.
We also do
So that's something to look at too.
We also do have an equipment grant this year from the state. We haven't heard.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been in the
follow up
budget,
because-
and we're going to follow up on it. We're supposed to get at least $25,000 to support cafeteria equipment.
I have to say.
I need a freezer.
For the normal, the federal one that they do.
I don't have a freezer.
Every year, but I forgot to put on the state.
Sure. So we'll let you know more as we know that, but that's something that was in the Budget Act.
Yeah,
that
freezer
we
would
should
be
receiving,
nice.
so.
There was something in the warrants that bothered me, and I want to just point out, and I know it's not something that didn't happen under your watch, but it appears that we returned like almost $6,000 to the state for unspent CTE funds from 2017.
Yeah, so that came on literally the first year where I had to do the match reporting. It became apparent that the way the match had been set up that I inherited did not meet program requirements, and it was discovered after the expenditure deadline, so there was no way to go back and
I get
correct
it.
that.
But
So,
I'm just wondering if you shouldn't be the person that's monitoring.
oh, I do, yeah, I do the match.
I get that,
yeah.
but I would argue that you've got your CTE people, if they knew that they have X amount of money to spend between now and now, and that there's, obviously they gotta get the match approved, but
Right.
still, if they've got X amount of money, I would defer that responsibility to whoever's the head of that program for that given year, and say, the board is not gonna be happy if we have to return any of this money.
We only have, that one year, the funding that we returned was the funding from 16-17, and we haven't returned any cents. So it, basically what happened is that staff has a payable on the books, and the state never was invoicing us. So I finally said, hey, we gotta get this off the books, it's just hanging out. So we just now paid it, but we make very sure every
You
year.
mean if we'd have kept it, the state might never have noticed?
Yes, but you pay me for my high ethical standards, so.
Nikki.
You would notice.
Well, I appreciate that, but by the same token, I hate to see money going the other direction.
Certainly, and because that happened right out of the gate, and it was my first time working with the CTE program, we didn't have it in Leggett. It was a good eye-opening experience, and I have stayed galvanized by that year after year. So we definitely stay on top of those funds.
Very good. I guess it boils down to is I think most of us, if not all of us, are reading all of that stuff.
Yes, for sure.
I encourage everybody, to especially look through the warrants and especially look at the things that kind of jump out at you, and give Nikki a call, send her an email, give Joe a call, send an email, and hopefully we can deal with most of those things not at a board meeting.
Has Christy and the rest of the cafeteria decided on what they're gonna do about plastic opposed to paper? It's so expensive, or is anything happening with that?
I haven't had a chance to follow up, to be perfectly
I
honest
don't,
at this point.
yeah, I'm
So
sorry.
it's,
So a couple of things that are kind of jumping at me for future board meetings, and I don't think they need to necessarily be on the next board meeting, because we're gonna have a organizational meeting, which is goofy as heck, why they couldn't do it tonight as opposed to a special meeting, but whatever. One is, just recently came up, and that's the question of limitations for single item purchases. If memory serves me right, this came up before, a number of years ago, and it's the district, the superintendent or a designee had a spending limit that was standard. It's like $25,000. And there was an emergency spending limit. So for example, a tree fell on the side of a building that the district owned, and we need, in the wintertime, and we needed it fixed right now. He could spend up to like $50,000. And now the numbers don't make any difference at this stage of the game, because I don't recall the numbers.
Did you see my email?
I did.
Okay.
And so I may be entirely off base here, but I think there was a policy here that had language to the effect I just described. I'm suggesting that it's also very possible that in our process of updating our policies through what Gamut sends us, we may have inadvertently updated the policy and ended up with what we have today, thinking it would only apply to bid contracts as opposed to single purchases. So I'd like to revisit that policy and see if there is an older policy out there that somehow got replaced.
Did you happen, on that policy, did you happen to look at the approval date?
You know, I should have, but I
Okay,
didn't.
I'll look at that, because I didn't think about that when we talked, but I can jump on it.
That popped into my head at some
I
point
don't
too, and
remember.
then it popped right back out. Nevertheless, I'd like to revisit that. Currently, under the language that's in there right now, the superintendent or his designee has the ability to spend up to $96,700 in a single purchase without board approval. For a district our size, I'm not sure that that's appropriate. I'm not saying it's not, but I think we should discuss it as a board and determine whether or not we should have a different limit set.
And, I mean, of course, we can go into this if we put it on the agenda. I would say one of the things we want to keep in mind if we start looking at changing that is our ability to respond to needs in the district
Exactly.
in a timely fashion.
Exactly.
So that would be my concern.
So I know that there's language, for example, that speaks to, if it's a budgeted item, then oftentimes administration takes that as considering if it's a budgeted item and the budget's been approved. Let's assume for the sake of argument, we put a $25,000 single purchase limit on the superintendent, okay? We budget for a $40,000 copier machine, blah, 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 for the administrative offices. I would argue that it's in our budget, we approved it up to $40,000. We don't need to treat it as a separate single item. But on the other hand, I would argue that if we had language to that effect, if something unrelated, not budgeted, came up that superintendent wanted to purchase, for example, he decides we need another van, and it was under the $25,000 limit, or maybe when it was over the $25,000, say it's $28,000, and should the superintendent have the unilateral authority just to go out and buy another van if it's above that $25,000 and it wasn't budgeted? I would argue it should be brought to the board. Again, those numbers, the threshold limits, they mean nothing at this stage. It's just, we're just talking about, okay? So I just think it's worth talking about that and putting it on the agenda.
sure, we'll do our research and bring it back to you.
I did have something else and I don't recall what it was.
Date.
Oh, date for the next meeting. Thank you.
So I was gonna suggest Tuesday the 14th is, if that's good for everyone.
It is available to me.
It's available to me.
What time are you talking about?
I have something from 3:30 to 4:30. Other than that,
Morning.
5 o'clock this work?
I'm good on the 14th.
5 o'clock works for me.
5 o'clock in the evening, right? Oh, okay. Well, I have a dental appointment in the middle of the day, but I'm fine at 5 o'clock.
So you won't be able to talk?
That'll upset you and I know it. Sorry.
And do you wish to meet in person or by Zoom?
We actually have several things on that agenda, correct? Why don't we meet in person?
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Good.
So, the 14th at 5 o'clock?
14th at 5 o'clock.
Here.
Here.
Yeah. Okay.
And it is a special meeting.
Yes.
Does it need to be recorded?
Yes.
No. Does it? Special meeting?
Yeah, but I will record it on
That is fine. Okay, there is one last item on the agenda. Would anybody care to guess what that might be?
Before you do, what goes on the agenda for the next meeting? Just the organizational part, being a special meeting is just one deal, right?
Item 6 and item 5.
Oh, okay, those two.
Okay.
All right.
And I think the next regular meeting, we'll worry about something like that potential policy change.
Yeah, I was planning for January for that,
Yeah.
because it'll take a little more time to research.
And the other item for January that I'd like to see is the salary schedule for administrators.
And is there a way we can put in either a day that's sanctioned or just is it whenever you want to go and like tour the site so that we can see some of the things that I get to hear so much about if none of
Certainly, I would recommend that you maybe reach out to the site principals because they have a better idea of the most appropriate day as far as if there's a special event or something like that going on. But yes, I think we could do that. I would ask that you follow either the same testing protocol that we would have for other folks on campus,
okay.
and most offices, I think all the offices can accommodate that for you.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and we can go with another board member, we can go alone, or what is the, I mean, what's?
Yes, no more than 2 of you.
Right.
But, yes, you can go with another board member if you would like. Like I say, they would just need advance notice, so teachers understand that you'll be on campus and pop in or that.
Oh, okay.
So offices can test, so if I wanted to go visit a school site, I would let them know and then go into the office and get tested? Okay. I've been avoiding going on campus because
I'm largely the same thing. So the last item I want to throw out there is not for an agenda item per se, but I know at least 2 of us, if not more, are interested in a retreat workshop with the board and the superintendent, and I'm interested in having it possibly mediated by an outside professional. And if you've got somebody, a couple of people that you might want to reach out to that might be able to do that for us. Interested in taking a look at vision, goals, communication between the superintendent and board. Those are probably the 3 things that jump right out there at the top.
You said vision, goals, and what?
Vision, goals, and communication between the superintendent and, we can talk, somebody can give us an update on, for example, the Brown Act. Just basically either a morning or an afternoon. I don't know what the board's preference is, but I'm going to
we
write
did
it.
a half day when we did it.
Yeah, I'm looking at a half day kind of a thing.
Yeah, I like mornings. Oh.
I'm with it. I think I'm right. Everybody got it white? Yeah, either like if we started, even if we did a midday, meet for a couple hours, have lunch, and meet for a couple hours and be done. So in terms of the logistics, I'm comfortable with whatever you want to work out.
Usually it'll be the availability of these folks might be the place we start because they tend to get pretty booked this time of year. So, but yes, I think that's a great idea. I was having that internal conversation just earlier today. So.
All right, I think we are at that last item, number 14. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you to the Zoom world. Appreciate all your input. Thank you to the folks in the background. Thank you for your input.
You guys.
Very welcome.